So a very warm welcome to the 2024 Valencia Marathon Trinidad Alfonso EDP. This is the 44th edition of one of the most popular and fastest marathons in the world. But this year's staging of the event was in doubt following the devastating floods that followed the half marathon back in October. The organisers were very conscious of the positive impact that the race and the event can have on the rebuilding process, on maximising the financial support to those people that really need it, describing the race as being a big hug to the wounded city as sport becomes hope and helps those who need it most. My name's James C. I'm delighted to have Richard Narurka alongside me, a former World Cup winner, 5th place finisher in the Olympic Games. Richard, it's going to be a day of remembrance, but also a day of celebrating some of the world's best athletes.
Yeah, the organisers have actually put in a moment of silence before the start of this morning's race. And James, as you were saying, it is a day when the city is trying to express its sympathy and support for many of the families of the victims who suffered those devastating floods at the end of October. And we have really witnessed how the city is trying to get back on its feet. The transport system is still not back to normal, and so many of the residents have not returned to their homes. So anyway, a big day of marathon running in store for us. There's the list of the winners from the last 5-6 years. Seaside Lemma with the course record 2:01:48 on the men's side, and there's a list of the women's winners. Great win by the Ethiopian Walkinesh Degafer last year, but the course record from 2 years ago, Amana Benito, who was actually entered for today's race, but a couple of weeks ago had to pull out with an injury.
And obviously, Richard, another remembrance of Kelvin Kipton, the previous course record holder and the world record holder in the marathon, tragically lost in that road traffic accident, and him and his coach. So that was a real tragedy to the sport, wasn't it?
Yeah, we witnessed his debut here 2 years ago, and that run, that victory really set him up for those 3 amazing marathons between December of 2 years ago and when he broke the world record in Chicago 14 months ago. So yeah, we still very much associate Kiptum's with this race, which is when he really came to fame.
So we've got 2 very strong fields. The elite women are going to be chasing some very fast times. There's reports, aren't they? It keeps getting faster and faster about projected times. Is that women's course record under threat today?
Well, the organisers have been talking about course records or targeting the course record in both men's and women's races. Personally, I think that the women's course record set here 2 years ago is probably within reach of Megetu Alamu. She's the leading female in today's race. The men's course record from last year, Seaside Lemma's 2:01:48, probably a bit harder by comparison, but yeah, both records are being attacked in the 2 elite races today. There is the graphic for Megetu Alamu, the leading female, age 27, ran her best time just earlier this year in London, and has been incredibly consistent over the last 2 years. Got a 2nd and 3rd place finish in Chicago. So they're the course records we mentioned. So those are the world records, actually, and the course records for Chicago, Berlin, London. Valencia sits 4th in the all-time list of course records. That's Seaside Lemma's time from last year. And in the women's division, Valencia actually sits 3rd in all-time course records. Obviously, the world record set just 2 months ago in Chicago by Ruth Chippengatich. But Amana Barisa's course record from 2 years ago, actually Tigist Asiva 2:11:53. So I doubt that they'll move up in those rankings, but it just shows how fast Valencia is, one of the fastest marathons in the world.
Isabel Bat-Doyle on the screen in front of you, and it was 20 national records set here 12 months ago. and that is something that the organisers would love to beat. We had 60 people getting Olympic standards. The Olympic standards, or the world standards, have moved on from those Olympic standards this year. 2:06.30 for men and 2:23.30 for women. They're the standards to be in those reckonings for the World Championships in Tokyo. But yeah, there's a lot of people with an eye on those national records.
Yeah, and obviously we're going to be focusing on the elite, but there were, you know, thousands, over 35,000 runners entered here, and many of the, let's say, the good club athletes who've come here from right across Europe and further afield, they're looking for best times. I read somewhere that over 5,000 people had gone under 3 hours in last year's race. So Valencia has really built its reputation as a course for running fast times and personal best times. Evelyn Chichir, one of the top Kenyans, 2:22.11. Well, the race organisers have been talking about getting the most ever athletes under 2:20 in the women's race. I think they had 7 athletes go under 2:20 2 years ago, and that's another target that's been set by the race organisers to see if they can go a little bit better this year.
Yeah, the pacemakers are going to be set with some steady times up front. And there's multiple pacing groups, and there's going to be groups formed, as you said, by just the sheer numbers out there. It is the big race almost to close out what has been a fascinating year. And that Ruth Chapman-Gadich world record just a few weeks ago. So there's the evolution of this Spanish national record. Novel's breaking that record last year, 2:05.43. Carlos Mayo's in this year, isn't he, Richard, with maybe an eye on that as well as another couple of other very, very talented Spanish athletes.
Yeah, it's a very strong record that was set here. Tariku Novales last year, 2:05.48. And on the women's side, Maida Mayouf, she broke the national record, 2:21.27. Actually, her best time is 2:21.01, which was when she was running for Morocco 2 years ago. So it was between her Moroccan national record and Spanish national record that she switched allegiance. So we've talked very much about the course and how fast it is. We're going to have a look at the course that the runners will cover over the next couple of hours, starting here at the Maratona de Europa and heading down towards the port, past the venue used for the 2008 America's Cup, Vélez y Vance, and then going along Malvarosa Beach up into the University District, and they do a slight out and back before heading on to the Blasco Ibanez Avenue, and then up past the 10-kilometre point, and then go on to the one big avenue, the Valladolid Avenue, and then swinging back down towards the well-known football stadium, the Mestalla Stadium, home to FC Valencia, and then back onto the Blasco Ibanez Avenue, and then comes back down towards the beach area at the halfway point. And it's at that point that they head north out back towards the city centre and along the very famous, what's known as the garden route, the Jardí del Turia. 28k, they go past the Torres de Serranos, and then they zigzag their way down into the old town, down the Calle de la Paz, past the town hall, and then heading out west out to the biopark, which is the zoo in Valencia, and then at 36k they turn left, coming back into the old town past the bull ring and the famous old North Station, the Estacio del Nord, 38k, and then they swing past the Porta de la Mar, 39.5k, and then through Gulliver's Park, which will bring them back down into this spectacular setting for the start and the finish in the Ciudad de las Artes y las Ciencias. There's the route unchanged from last year.
Yeah, and as we saw one of the graphics that came up earlier, well, look at that, there's almost no elevation on the course. And we had the graphic also of the conditions as well, and almost absolutely perfect. If there is a thing as perfect marathon conditions, it's pretty much up there. And that's why the runners flock here from all around the world, and it's not just the elites, it's the masses as well. It's on one of the bucket lists of those runners looking to get a fast time, looking to get a race experience. And what a great setting here, Richard, for the start and the finish.
Yes, the start is on top of the bridge. It's a couple of 100 metres away from where we're sitting right by the finish on top of Monte Olivetti Bridge, actually modelled on the New York Marathon, which starts on the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. Not quite as big, this bridge, but that's where the runners will start in a few minutes' time. And as we mentioned a few minutes ago, there's going to be a commemoration for the victims of the flood before we go to the start.
Kenenisa Bekele, one of the world's fastest marathon men of all time, so decorated on the track, multiple Olympic champion, world champion, and was back to business last year with second place, or this year I should say second place in London, but it didn't quite go to plan in the Paris Olympic Games, 39th there, but he's back again, and he says he's not going to retire, Richard, until he breaks the world record.
Yep, still full of confidence and still hugely motivated to not only improve his best time to a 1:41, but to get close to Kiptum's world record. There he is, Kenenisa, an amazing record going back over 20 years, 3 Olympic titles, and a best in the marathon set in Berlin 5 years ago to a 1:41. And they're the leading female athletes, led by Magetu Alamu. So 3 athletes have run under 2 hours 20, but Mark Roach, the elite athlete coordinator, a couple of days ago was talking of the possibility of more than 7 athletes trying to go under 2:20.
Yeah, American interest in there. Sarah Hall has been training, I think, with Callie Thackeray in Flagstaff. So what can Sarah Hall improve on? I think it was around about 15th, wasn't it, in Boston, 18th in Chicago. But looking to be competitive today.
Valencians en veu al sencer, que nostra veu la llum salude i un sol per ofrenar noves glòries a Espanya, tots a una veu, germans vinga.
So the anthem of Valencia, we are just less than a minute away from the start of the race, and in a few seconds they're going to have a few moments of silence just before they fire the gun, and James and myself will also be silent in those moments.
So we're off. It is the start of the 2024 Valencia Marathon, Trinidad Alfonso EDP. This is a sight to see. 35,000 entries, the world's very best runners here on the streets of Valencia. And it's the start of December and one of the closes of a big year of athletics, of marathon running. And we're looking for some very fast times today, Richard, aren't we?
Yeah, we're going to be talking quite a lot about the attack on the course record, I think what is interesting for me is that today we've got some highly experienced runners, particularly the Ethiopian runners who are coming back here to run again. Sise Lema, defending champion, and Kenenisa Bekele probably at the top of that list. But alongside these experienced marathon runners, we've got 4 or 5 very interesting debutants who have established themselves at the shorter distances over 10k and half marathon. And those, particularly the Kenyan debutants, are going to form a fascinating battle between the newcomers, so to speak, and the more experienced marathon runners. I was actually looking, James, that the top 4 Ethiopians have run 70 marathons between them, whereas they're up against these 4 complete newcomers at the marathon, but with incredible records behind them over the shorter distances.
So you might have seen on the left-hand side the hemispheric. That's what we're looking out from our commentary box here, and it's just an amazing sight. The aerial shots, the thousands of runners. Many will be running for charities, many running for their own personal goals, their own personal aims. So up front we'll have some pacemakers that are going to be setting out, looking at around about 61 minutes through the half. Last year's half marathon split was brisk. They went through that halfway point in 60 minutes and 35 seconds. So runner with the bib 394. That is Vincent Nanego. So a 61 earlier this year. But some of these athletes, he's pretty much an out-and-out pacemaker, isn't he, Richard? Some of these athletes that they make a career out of setting the pace, and it's for them to be so trusted in the early stages. Samuel Mali's another one up there that he's a world medalist himself, and that's the quality of pacemakers that are needed to be at the front to run that 61-minute half marathon split.
Yeah, incredibly fast-paced. 61 minutes is what they've asked for, and yeah, we can see that the red vests on the right and left of the screen, 391, 394, and also in the middle, 393. Those are the 3 pacemakers, and Kenenisa Bekele has gone out very fast. In the press conference 2 days ago, he was saying that he wasn't in peak shape, but he's clearly decided he's going to sit right on the back of that front 3 group.
In the middle of that group is the third of the pacers in the NN singlet. That's Eric Sang. So we 7th place in Amsterdam just a few weeks ago, 2:07:50. It's a sub 60-minute half marathon runner as well. But as you say, Kenenisa Bekele, at the age of 42, he's the world masters record holder, but he said he's not done yet. And he, every time we write him off, every time we think he's not in shape, he comes back again. But it's a tall, tough order today, just given the quality of runners. And the leading women, we will try and pick them up as they go, because the sheer number, the sheer volume of runners around them, they're going to be very good. Almost don't want to call them club runners at the pace that they might have to be running to be thereabouts the lead female runners. There could be some national records set in the male division around the lead women, Richard.
Yeah, I think there we see on the right of the screen Mageto Alamu. She is the leading female, and it's going to be interesting to see whether any of the other women are going to try to go with her. I think just behind her at the moment is another Ethiopian, Tiruyu Mesfin, in the white and orange of the NN kit. But Mageto Alamu, she's got the best time, 2:16:34, and she has been so consistent over the last 2 to 3 years. And so she is probably the standout favourite in the women's race. And we were hearing that she's going to attack that course record, 2:14:58, set by her compatriot Amana Bariso 2 years ago.
Yeah, Alamu's record is just phenomenal. Top three finishes in London. So she's really looking for that big marathon victory, and that personal best 2:16:34 set in London this year. And that's the depth of women's marathon running right now. It is moving on week by week. But there were some talks yesterday about Alamu pacer, having a personal pacer going at 2:14, and this morning word on the grapevine that she could be looking at 2:12, Richard. So that really would be some fast early splits, and that really would smash a few minutes off the course record.
Yeah, I think when Tigges Dassersverb set the world record 14 months ago in Berlin, 2:11:53, I think it really started to get people to rethink the way marathon running was going to be run, particularly on the women's side. Of course, that world record has since been surpassed by Ruth and Chepngetij's incredible time in Chicago just 2 months ago, 2:09:56, the world record now. But yes, over the last 12 months and more, so many female athletes and their coaches have had to really rethink what their goals are, and I think Meghetto Alamu falls into that group with the best time in 2:16:34, and that's why she's now starting to talk about times of around 2:12, 2:14.
So on the screen in front of us, Sebastian Sare is the athlete to look out for today. Outstanding half marathon runner. He knows Valencia very well. Second place in the half marathon behind that world record of Kojelcha just a few weeks ago, but making his debut today. We've said it previously, Richard, just because you're a great or world-class half marathon runner doesn't mean the step up is easy. It doesn't matter. It doesn't necessarily happen automatically.
Yeah, I think why a lot of people are talking up Sebastian Sare's chances are because he is coached by the great Claudio Berardelli, who has coached so many great runners to big marathon wins. He looks after Evans Chibet, Benson Kipruto, Amos Kipruto. All of them have won big marathon majors in the last few years, and Claudio himself has been saying that Sebastian's preparation for this race has gone to plan. So Claudio knows exactly what good shape means, and we are expecting good things from Sebastian, although we have to say, because it's his first marathon, he'll be going into the unknown once he goes past the halfway point.
Check it there on the screen, 2:07 lifetime best. So they're chasing this Spanish national record. On the back of that group is Carlos Mayo. Again, another athlete that's making their marathon debut. Sub 60 minutes for the half. Just a little shove on the athlete in front. Just a reminder just to stay concentrated. It's a fast pace each of these groups are setting out, and it's about settling down into the pace in these early stages. Galeta is the athlete wearing 4 in that green singlet, just behind the pacemakers. A look over his shoulder. 5th in the Olympic Games, just 31 seconds off a medal, just behind Britain's Emile Caress. What a run by the British athlete. Winning in Seville, very impressively, 2:03. And he's someone that comes into this with real full and probably looking to make another jump.
Yeah, we were in Seville 10 months ago when he made that massive breakthrough to win the race in a course record in Seville, 2:03:27. I mean, he's experienced the marathon. He's run 16 marathons already. This is the Ethiopian in the green vest, just behind the pacemakers, Deresa Galeta. But as you were saying, James, both his win in Seville in February of this year and then his 5th place in Paris in the Olympics has really given him that confidence. Interestingly, he's also coached by Haji Agilo. Haji coaching both Deresa Galeta and the leading female, Meghetto Alamu.
And it's going to be interesting to see for some of these runners that did run on that very tough Paris course in August, the recovery. It was brutal, wasn't it, that big climb, as the right hand of our split screen shows the next wave of runners. That's what's needed to get the sheer numbers, the sheer volume of runners here. Just under 26,000 12 months ago, but 35,000 entries this year. There was a real buzz around the city, wasn't there, Richard, when we were walking around yesterday, and even on our jog on the park, there was just so many runners out, so many people that have travelled here to be part of this experience, and it really is one that is just growing year by year. Not just European athletes, but people travelling. Tourism in marathon is such a popular thing right now. The climate is just so conducive, Richard, and the pancake flat course.
Yeah, we've been here quite a few years now, James, and we've had great weather every year, and this weekend is no exception. 12 degrees, no wind, so it's very, very good for marathon running. And I think also, as you're saying, that the size of the city is such that there is this sense that the whole city is taken over by the marathon. It's not a huge city, and so many of the hotels are filled with marathon runners this weekend. Actually, my flight over here a few days ago, it was full of marathon runners, very obviously, getting off the plane and heading to the expo to collect their race number. And that's why there is this great atmosphere of excitement and anticipation throughout the weekend. And I think now we've got the second wave underway. I think there are 6 waves of runners that we'll see all 30,000 runners get off to the start. But we're looking at on the left-hand side, the leading women, and Turiya Mesvin. She is right on the shoulder of her compatriot Megetu Alamu.
Yeah, such an important point, Richard, about the hotels being full, and again, you know, the importance or the support of the race to the city to help rebuild, and obviously the local boost to the tourism of the city, and everything in the surrounding areas as well. So our hotel was super busy of runners, especially during breakfast as well. Bumped into Paul Graham, who his wife Clara Evans, both of them Ponty Rodents. They'll be looking for individual times themselves, but I think Clara, one of the Brits, will be chasing that world qualifying time, 2:23:30. She had a late call-up for those Olympic Games in Paris, so look out for the Welsh lady chasing that fast marathon standard for Tokyo. But talking about fast times, our 3 pacers on the front that have that job. Malu, there you go, Sang. So shoulder to shoulders, we go back to the back of the group. The Abessa Simbassa 2:10:34. Decorated athlete, he'll be looking to smash that in that group. There's such a large number of athletes. This looks about the 2:06 group, Richard, running around, I think, a 63 half split, and a lot have chosen to go with this pace, which is the World Championship qualifying time.
Yeah, I did see Carlos Mayo there, one of the leading Spanish athletes. I mean, there were quite a few Spanish athletes. We've mentioned Ibrahim Chakir. He ran his best time here 12 months ago, and also Carlos Mayo. So they're targeting that 2:06. I think their pace is actually 62:30, so targeting actually a little bit faster, but 2:06:30 being the World Championship qualifying time for Tokyo next year.
Cesar Lema was such a dominant figure 12 months ago, winning by 83 seconds, then going on to take the Boston title as well. He's not quite had the build-up as he would have hoped to defend this title, because he ran so well, you know, to close in such a hard way last year.
Yes, Cesar Lema obviously struggled with injury through the summer and actually had to give up his Olympic place for Paris, and then that's why Tamrat Tola was brought in, and with Tamrat eventually winning the gold medal. So there's a nice picture on the left of the screen of number 1, Cesar Lema, defending champion, who's come here hoping to repeat his victory. But what we've heard is that his build-up hasn't been as smooth as it was last year. But Gemadou Degafa, his coach, says whenever Cisse puts on his racing shoes, you've got to consider him. He's a great racer, and yeah, they're running very fast. Soon we'll get their 5K split, but yeah, you mentioned how fast they set off last year. Last year they went through the halfway in 60:33, which was very, very fast pace, and it really broke up that leading group. Today looks as though that leading group is already starting to split up a little bit.
Yeah, it will do at that pace. Those that are going to make the conscious decision to go through in 61 minutes. Bang there on the screen, 2:08:07. So again, tucked in this 2:06 group. Just sheer volume, sheer numbers there. at the moment, but you can see by the cadence on the side, Grabazak is another one of the Norwegian athletes. Obviously, Norwegian athletics in such a good place endurance-wise. Jakob Ingebrigtsen taking that 5,000 meter Olympic title. And then interestingly going up against Sebastian Sarway in Copenhagen. That was a really fascinating one, running in the Diamond League 1500 meters on the Friday night, and then going up against the world's very best over half marathon just a few days later. And Jakob not back to the drawing board for half marathon, but maybe a little bit more respect to the likes of Sarway, just the sheer speed. And that's probably what Sarway needs to do today, is obviously have that same respect for the marathon, because obviously stepping up, the importance of refueling. We talked about that, didn't we, Richard, on the stroll to the course this morning, that nutrition, refueling is such an important part of marathon running. You might have seen the runners there dive into the right-hand side of their race course to get their drinks bottles, so they will have a different kind of mix of carbohydrates, of what they need at certain parts of the course. And they'll also be taking on gels as the race unfolds, and that's such an important part in terms of staying hydrated, staying refueled. Missing a drink station can be the difference between holding their pace, running personal bests or even national records, and sometimes not finishing at all. But been a real change in the construction or the science behind refueling over the last few years, almost as much as there has been, and lots of talk obviously about shoe technology that over the last 5-6 years has just rapidly changed the face of the sport, but also the ability to come back and recover. There's a few athletes that we've said have already raced in Amsterdam a few weeks ago, that have raced in or paced or even dropped out of Chicago, whereas a few years ago, going to 35 kilometers in a marathon, Richard, there's no getting back off the canvas and coming back again.
Yeah, I was commentating in Amsterdam 6 weeks ago, and the leading Israeli athlete, Maru Teferi, he was in that race, ran his best time, 2:05:42, 6 weeks ago, and he's back today. I don't think he's gone out with the leaders, so he's probably been a little bit more conservative, but his best time prior to his PB in Amsterdam was 2:06:43, and I think that's the group, or that's the pace that he set off at today. On the screen now, that's the leading women, and there's about 4 or 5 of them who are together. They go to Alamu in 2:02 in the green vest, and right on her shoulder is Turuyu Mesvin, and just behind them the third-placed athlete from last year, Haywat Gebrselassie, and the leading Ugandan, Stella Chesang. But we're now going to focus on the leading men.
That first 5 kilometre split was 14:31 for our elite men, so just a fraction of a couple of seconds shy of last year's first split. So the pacer's doing a good job, and you might have seen on the screen the women's time, again just a fraction over 16 minutes. So it is quick in these early stages. The pacers just checking over their shoulders just to make sure that the group, and it is probably a group down to around about 9 or 10. Kinis Bakili is in that group. I think another athlete trying to come back from a little bit of disappointment. Mahanu Legesse, again another fantastic Ethiopian athlete. Dropped out of Chicago at 32 kilometers and citing a calf cramp. And he said he had an issue 2 weeks before, I think from a sports massage, so said he was in great shape. Third in 2023 here, 2:03:16, so a podium previously at Rotterdam and Tokyo, so normally very, very consistent. And he would have been devastated to have to have dropped out of Chicago, but going again, maybe he'll look back on that and see that as just a long run in Chicago, and just hoping that that calf has recovered in time. There's our elite women. There's a lot that have gone with this early pace as well. That's a healthy lot of numbers, isn't it, in this early group in the elite women?
Yeah, well, with the men and women starting together, there's plenty of men who are targeting that time around 2:15. So Alamu and her main opponents, Mesfin and Chisang from Uganda and Gebre Kidan from Ethiopia. They're going to have plenty of company for the full distance. Interestingly, at the front of the race, there are about 8 athletes who've decided to go with this very fast pace set by the 3 pacemakers. We've got Sisai Lema, and just behind him, also in the Adidas kit, Sebastian Sawe, and then the green vest, Ethiopian Deresa Geleta, and also there Amdalak Beliu from Ethiopia, Kenenisa Bakilis in that group, and who else? Oh, Bahano Legessa, as you were saying, James, 2:02.48 his best time. So a very good, very strong group of about 8 athletes who have chosen to go with this pace. They're targeting that 61-minute time for the half distance.
Yeah, that first 5K split was right where they wanted to be. The elite women at 16-minute time gives them of a 2:15 clock in. Sharik, the French athlete, 2:08.37 lifetime best. Richard Ringer there at the back of the group, the European champion in the marathon. That fantastic sprint finish in Munich, wasn't it, just a couple of years ago, where he really did close out the last few yards to take that title.
Yeah, I mean, the German national record for the marathon, 2:06.27, and Richard Ringer, his best time is 2:07.05, so I think they've gone out aiming for the World Championship qualifying time, 2:06.30, so if Ringer stays on that pace, he's going to get very close to the national record. There's about 20 national records that are under threat today, not so much Kenya and Ethiopia, but Israel, Germany, Switzerland, Bolivia, Tanzania, Norway. We're going to be following those attempts at national records. Remember, the race organisers have set themselves a number of goals in this race. They're looking at course records, they're looking at the most ever national records to be set in a marathon, and they're also hoping that more than 7 women can go under 2:20. Well, they've got quite a big group of leading women, and there on the right of the screen is what's being called a chasing group, and that's Mayita Mayuf, the leading Spanish athlete, and I think sensibly she hasn't gone off with the leaders. She got the best time, 2:21.27 set. I think that was set last year actually, because her best time, 2:21.01, was from the marathon here in Valencia 2 years ago. Last year, when she had already switched her allegiance to Spain, that's when she ran the Spanish national record, 2:21.27, and I think she's aiming to improve that national record here today.
Yeah, I think she'll be looking to break 2:20. I think it's Lucas Maz and Jose Jimenez is the chasing group pacers. They're looking around about 69.45 to 70 minutes, and Alex Cavares and Anthony Caio are the pacers for Group 1. And they were originally looking at 68.15 from the pacers meeting, but they've gone out a little bit faster than that. Alamu's personal pacer, they were chatting about 2:14, even 2:12 was being bandied around, but looks like they've all gone off together. We half expected Alamu to be down the road with the chase Group 1 behind, but at the moment they're all one big group, and there's so many of the other runners around them. Just need to be a little bit mindful, especially when it comes to drink stations, that they give themselves a little bit of space to see the elite stations drink spots, because they will have access to those. The runners around them won't, and they won't necessarily be thinking about their own drink station at that point. So it's going to be really important for the elite women just to stay switched on, to make sure that they do sight their specific drink. As I said earlier, that missing it can be detrimental to their performance. Correta is the Portuguese athlete. Again, another one of those that needs to knock off about a minute from his best. And that's going to be the challenge to these athletes, that their perception, their idea of what is a fast marathon has changed. You know, a year ago that was an Olympic standard. Now it's a minute off the world standard. You know, the rapid you know, increase in performance needed. It's it just shows you the world of marathon running literally is moving on race by race. As we saw in Chicago, the women's world record now inside 2:10, and well, there's still discussions around, can someone go inside the magic 2-hour barrier in a major city marathon? And look, Kipchoge's done that, obviously on that contrived Vienna 1:59 project, but Kelvin's run just around about 30 seconds outside the magical 2-hour barrier in Chicago. And Kelvin was the athlete that we thought would be that first athlete inside 2 hours. But there's also, isn't there, Richard, it's €1 million on offer for someone to break that record in Valencia. I don't think we're going to see that today, but that could definitely entice someone in the future to come to Valencia to break the world marathon record. We've seen it in the half marathon. Both world half marathon records are here. They're home in Valencia, but can the world marathon record be set here in Valencia?
Yeah, I think that talks a little bit about the ambition of the race organisers here. They've already set 8 world records in races in Valencia over the last 4 years. I remember when Cheptegei came here and broke the world record for 10,000 metres in October of 2020. At the same meeting, Letasembek Gidai broke the world record for 5,000 metres. And I suppose over the last 4 years, we've seen so many world records, mainly on the road. And the most recent of those was Yomif Gajelcha's world record over half marathon at the end of October, 57:30. So Valencia very much building up its reputation as the place in the world to run records, and we're looking to see what records are going to be broken today.
The likes of Sebastian Sarway is one of those that, with the speed he has over half marathon. But Gajelcha, when's Gajelcha's marathon debut going to be? Well, the speed he has on the track, but that world half marathon record was a special run here a few weeks ago. I know athletes like familiarity, they like going back to places that they've had really good experiences. So being that he's 2.5 minutes inside the 60-minute barrier for the half, has he got his eye on the potential world record maybe in 12 months' time? But great split screen here. You can see the speed of the elite men on the left and the cadence of the elite women on the right. They are both travelling, but making it look so relaxed at the speed. The men are coming up to their 10-kilometre split, so we're looking for around about the 29-minute mark to maintain that 61-minute halfway split. And that puts them within touching distance of that course record. There is the course record holder, defending champion, Tisa Lema. Such a tough man of marathon running, so consistent. And if he isn't quite in the shape that he would have wanted to be, and that will be of a slight disappointment to him, because on his day, when he is in shape, he is such a great racer, and he knows how to prepare, so would have been absolutely devastated to give his place up for the Olympic Games in Paris. And that just shows the depth of Ethiopian distance running, where the reserve comes in and takes the Olympic gold.
On the right of the screen, one of the Kenyan debutants, number 12, Matthew Kameli. We were actually expecting that he might have gone off with that leading group, but he's chosen to go with the second group. Kameli, one of the 4 debutants that we're looking at today, but the leading 2, Sebastian Sarway and Daniel Mateko, have gone with the leaders, which we're referring to Mateko as a debutant. Actually, he has attempted the full marathon twice, but hasn't yet finished a marathon. So there's the 10K split, 29:04. So they're still just a little bit outside the course record. Course record pace 28:56, so they're 8 seconds outside Cisse Lema's course record pace from last year. But if you remember, Lema actually went out, well, that leading group last year, they went through halfway in 60:33, so probably no bad thing if they're a little bit down at this stage in the race. Very much early stage, the first quarter distance coming up. gone through 10K in 29:04.
Yeah, it's within touching distance. That was a 14:33 second 5K split. So that 8 seconds can be brought back very, very quickly, or it can also be lost very, very quickly in the latter stages. The projected time there coming up on the screen, 2:02:30, and there's a lot of athletes in this group that are operating a lot faster than their lifetime bests. So we do expect athletes to drop off this group at some point. And as you said, some athletes choosing not to go with this. Matthew Comelli, one of those. Again, coming in with a lifetime best at the half marathon, 58:43, but choosing to sit back, that could be a wise decision in the later stages. It is stick or twist sometimes in marathon running to throw caution to the wind, but in a debut sometimes you've got to find your feet. And, you've got to really kind of learn the distance, learn the event. As you've gone through some of those decorated marathon runners, this is their 17th, 18th, 19th marathon. It doesn't always happen straight away. There's the elite women on the screen waiting or coming towards their 10-kilometre split. Remember, they were at 16:01 through 5 kilometres, so expected around about that 32-minute mark. Matt Doyle, the Australian athlete, chasing that world standard, chasing the national record as well.
Yeah, Australian national record set by Sinead Diver here in Valencia at the age of 41 when she ran 2:21:34. So Isabel Bat-Doyle got a big task ahead of her. She's going to have to improve her best time by over 2 minutes. Current PB 2:23:27, but has got some good company around her to try and take her all the way to a new PB. I wonder if she's just got her eye on that World Championship qualifying time, 2:23:30, which is around her current best time.
So just going down some of the splits, an interesting one. Ed Cheserek is in one of those chasing groups as well. A winner of the Copenhagen Half Marathon in 2023, fifth this year in that star-studded field. Sebastian Sarway winning in Copenhagen this year, 58:05. Cheserek back in fifth, 59:32, but he'll be looking for a better marathon today. The multiple NCAA's champion, and someone that the message boards are always fascinated to see how they go. He's someone that we're looking to make that transition finally from track to half marathon to marathon. So there's the elite women's split, and it is almost identical. There you go, 32:03. So that's a 16:02 second 5-kilometre split. So again, operating right around that 2:15 pace. As the elite men, you can see, I don't think we've lost anyone of that group, Richard. It still looks as if we are healthy in numbers as the chasing group behind. Again, both of those are full of talent.
Yeah, 9 athletes behind the 3 pacemakers. Kenenisa Bekele, very prominent in that leading group. Sisai Lema, Ethiopia, and the debutant also in the blue Adidas kit, Sebastian Sarway, just on the heels of Sisai Lema. Also just behind Sebastian Sarway, that's the Kenyan Daniel Mateko. Delisa Galetta there.
Guy Odola is another one in that league group as well. There's a lot of strength in this field, a lot of experience. Kenenisa Bekele getting me more experience than World Masters record holder, but so many gold medals on the track, over cross country, one of the all-time greats of distance running. It's so interesting to see that he just won't hang up those shoes yet. You were saying that there's still a fire and there's still a talk, and he was talking in the press conference about he won't retire until he breaks the world record, and he commits himself again. There were reports that he isn't in the best of shapes, but he never shies from the challenge.
No, he's had so many great comebacks. When he ran that amazing time in Berlin 5 years ago, 2:01:41. I remember before that he'd dropped out of Amsterdam in 2018, and personally I thought at that point that maybe his career was coming to an end, but he bounced back with that sensational time in Berlin, 2:01:41, and then again had a few years without any big results, and then suddenly last year here in Valencia had what I would call his second comeback, because he dropped out of London 18 months ago in the 2023 marathon in London, and then he came here and surprised everyone again with that amazing 2:04:19 fourth place performance, which really set him up for a great 6 months, because he then went on to finish second in London earlier this year, and that's what won him selection for the Paris Games.
Mayouf, interestingly, there, kind of leading her group. Would have thought she's almost looking around for her own pacemaker, or the pacemaker in that group. So getting some reports back that the chase group in the men around about 30 seconds, about 29:30. Another interesting runner in that group, Hilary Kipkoech, that 12 months ago he was one of the pacers, wasn't he? Cisalema taking him to 30k, and we said that day that Kipkoech could be the future, but he's chosen to sit back. I would have thought that he might have been one of those to go with his early pace, but he's in the group with Ed Cesarek, with the group behind. They're still operating around the 2:04 mark, so that could close. They could close that gap. But there's Cisalema on the screen. Look at the relaxed running style, Sebastian Sarway. Almost just looks in Sunday run mode at the moment. So welcome if you're joining us to the 2024 Valencia Marathon, Trinidad Alfonso EDP. So maybe your Sunday long run is just on a little bit of a hold, a pause until the conclusion of this race. Do stay with us. Men and women's races are of phenomenal standard, and you can follow runners on the Valencia Marathon app as well, because you're a tracker, a leaderboard as well, with the various splits, so you can follow the club runners that you've got out there, the elite runners that you know, to see who's making the numbers in this super strong elite men's and women's field. So Richard, they've maintained the pace through the first 10k. This is where it kind of settles down a bit now, doesn't it? The next few kilometres are so important, that the sheer numbers also of the pacemaker, especially in this front end. In terms of pacemakers, the longer they can go, we always talk about that 25 to 30 kilometre point. If we can get a couple of paces to that, then that course record could definitely be challenged.
Yeah, so 3 pacemakers, and they've been asked to go at least until halfway, and hopefully a couple of them will stay into 25k, hopefully even 30k. Last year, Hilary Kipkoech, he did a great job. He was in the race until 30k, and that's when Cisalema, he took hold of the race and really ran on his own for the last 12 kilometres. But yeah, a very fast pace, and that group of 9 athletes who are following those 3 pacemakers, with our favourites and those 2 debutants, Sebastian Sarway and Daniel Mateko. Sarway, an outstanding record really over the half marathon distance. He's run 9 half marathons, all of them under 60 minutes, and he's won 7 of them. Most recently, that win in Copenhagen in September, when he beat Jacob Kiplimo. There's a nice view of Fionnuala McCormack, 2:23:58. I wonder if she's got her eye on that World Championship qualifying time, 2:23:30.
And also, is it Catherine McKinnon's national record as well? So Fionnuala McCormack is just, again, a phenomenal athlete. Again, we talk about longevity. Decorated cross-country runner that has made such a good transition to the marathon. Again, doing it year on year. So there'll be a big Irish contingent watching the feed this morning. And there's the Ponty Rodents vest of Dan Hamilton tucked in the middle of that elite women's group. There's big numbers in that group, and they're operating at the 2:15 mark at the moment. And again, it does make it a challenge, Richard, doesn't it, for the drinks stations? You know, the elite women have to navigate their way through what is probably about 20, 30 athletes around them, all running at that 2:14, 2:15 pace.
Yes, you're right. I think for the elite women, that's going to be quite a lot harder. Stella Chisang, the Ugandan national record holder, coming to the race with her 2:20.23. She's one of the athletes aiming to go under 2:20 for the first time in her career. She's just on the shoulder of the race favourite, Magetu Alamu, in the green vest, right in the middle of that group on the right of the screen. Meanwhile, on the left of the screen, the leading men, they've just gone through, coming up to 9 miles. So about 14.5 kilometres done. They're going to come back past the FC Valencia Stadium, the Mastella Stadium. That's where the crowds are at the moment. But Sisai Lema and Dessa Gelata in the green vest running alongside Kenenisa Bakila. There's in the blue Adidas vest Amdalak Beliu and Sebastian Sawe, Daniel Mateko, Bahanu Legessa from Ethiopia.
Just a little look on the screen there of some of the athletes chasing national records. Quebrando is inside the Norwegian pace at the moment. Garibay, another one, Bolivian athlete, 41 seconds inside. Malawi, 29.31. There's a lot of them in that group, that chase group behind, 30 seconds adrift of the lead group. There's the drink station navigated, and the relief for some of those athletes is a little discussion. And the pace they're running at, sub 3 minutes per kilometre, making it look so easy. Lisa's got his drink, and you can see they have different ribbons on just to identify themselves. You can imagine if they all go for a table with the same drink. Kenenisa Bakili there, such a beautiful looking runner, so economical. He almost just doesn't really think about his age, and he's still thorough in his training preparation. Just knows going to Valencia that he's going to have fantastic conditions, fantastic pacing. Sebastian Sare at the back of that group. And, another athlete in there as well is Andak Balaus. Again, a World Championship full finisher in the 10,000 metres, and 5th in the World Half Marathon Championships in 2020. So again, a very strong Ethiopian athlete that doesn't always get the plaudits. 2:06.40 lifetime best, but operating much faster than that in that lead group. So this is the elite women's group. Pacers keeping that very consistent pace. We had 16:01, 16:02 for the 2 kilometre splits, and there you go. That's why we've got a 2:15.14 projected time. A little look over their shoulder various times, and you can see some different British club vests tucked in there as well. This is a marathon, and a lot of the Brits put on their bucket list of getting out to such an easy place to get to, various airports, and some flying into the likes of Alicante and making the short trip there. Carlos Mayo there looks a little bit like he might be struggling on the back of that group. Just a look over his shoulder. Doesn't look quite maybe as relaxed as you would have thought for someone that's run inside 60 minutes, Richard. You might not have thought that. Almost looks like he's gasping for a little bit of oxygen. There's the 15-kilometre split. So 43.03. So 36 seconds down on the pace of last year. But you said, Richard, it was quick, wasn't it, through the first half last year? 60.5, almost too quick in the end. So maybe this is a little bit more controlled. It's a little bit more respect to the course for that second half.
Yeah, there's on the right-hand side of the screen, this is the chasing group in the women's race.
Looks like Sarah Hall to the right of the screen there.
Yeah, running her 4th marathon of the year. Ran the US trials at the start of the year and then went on to run Boston and Chicago. Chicago Marathon less than 2 months ago, but Sarah said she often trains over the marathon distance, so not that much of a hardship for her to come and run her 4th marathon, another athlete aiming to go under 2:20, but her best time 2:20:32, set in that year when she also finished 2nd in London. The leading women on the left-hand side of the screen, Magetu Alamu getting her drink, and the Ugandan athlete Stella Chisang has chosen to go at that very fast pace, operating quite a lot faster than she's ever run in her life before.
Yeah, Sarah Hall operating around about the 2:20 mark. Next to her was Paul Graham, but I know he's shooting for that time. So that's the benefit that many of these elite women get, that they've got quality runners around them aiming for similar times, so they won't be on their own as the race unfolds. And the pacemakers on the right-hand side and the elite men just chatting to each other, almost just loping along, maybe just talking about whether the pace is on where they need to be, or whether they need to subtly pick it up.
Well, one athlete we haven't mentioned is the Ethiopian in the green vest alongside Sise Lemma. That's Demiso Legessa. He's running his 3rd marathon today. Now, his best time is 2:15:11. So he is really taking a big chance, and maybe he's prepared much better for this race. Actually, his best time goes back 3 years. He ran that in Lagos, probably not one of the world's fastest marathon courses, but he's looking very good at the moment. But we're still at around, well, just beyond the 15-kilometre point. So that's why he's got the high number 3:62. Not one of the fancied athletes, Lemma and Bekele, wearing 1 and 2. And all of those fancied runners, they've got bib numbers between, well, the top 30 really. Lemma in 1, Bekele in 2, Buhanu Legessa in 3, Deresa Geleta in the light green vest in 4, and Guya Adola, also of Ethiopia, in 5.
Elisimo Legessa, as you say, unknown in relation to the others, but sometimes you've got to take a hit, haven't you? Sometimes you've just got to get in the lead group. He knows the shape he's in training-wise, and these groups in Ethiopia and Kenya just full of talent, and see the elite women splits come up, and it's the quickest split of the race so far. So that's a 15:50 split for that last 5 kilometers. So just a subtle pickup. But, still very, very consistent running. The pacers just checking their watches. The elite women are rolling on at the moment. You can see women's course record pace 48:03. They're 7 seconds inside that at the moment. So that the race organisers will be absolutely delighted with the elite women going after this course record.
Yeah, I think there's just 2 women now in that group. There's a very big group of more than 20 athletes, obviously most of them men, and there's just 2, as far as I can see, 2 female athletes. That's the race favourite in the green vest, just behind the front 2, Magetu Alamu, and just behind her is the Ugandan athlete, Stella Chisang.
Yeah, Chisang operating way inside her lifetime best as well, 2:20. But the Ugandan has had some really good races, some really good form. So again, not a great surprise to see her go with this pace. And again, a lot of them operating inside national record pace as well. So there's the elite men on the right-hand screen. The split screen really does do justice to the races, and seeing the races unfold as well in real time. You can see the beautiful conditions that the athletes have been greeted with today. So barely any wind. So around about, say about 14, 15 degrees now, maybe even slightly cooler than that. And some good noise on the streets as well. People coming out to support the runners. They know the importance of this city, known as the city of running in Spain, and they pride themselves through. Look, the riverbed has a beautiful running surface. Myself and Richard, we got a few miles on there last night, didn't we, on the 5K loop? And there were loads of runners out running last night, and they won't be people that will be on the streets today. They'll be racing the marathon themselves. They'll be cheering these runners on. But you can see the restaurants and hotels absolutely bustling with people that have travelled here. So the elites, they've got half an eye on the big prize money, on the selection for various national teams, because that is something, Richard, isn't it? The Kenyan and Ethiopian selection for the likes of the World Championships. We saw that last year with the Olympic Games. You know, they were very good athletes. Tamaratola, for example, not on that original selection for the Olympic Games.
Yeah, very competitive to make the Kenyan and the Ethiopian teams. Be interesting to see which of the athletes are really serious about going to the World Championships next year, next September, for the marathon. Now the World Marathon majors are so big, you know, winning one of the majors either in London or Boston, Tokyo, which will be, those are the marathons coming up in the first half of next year. Athletes have just gone through 18 kilometres. It's a nice view of Kenenisa Bekele, who's getting a lot of support, shouts of encouragement from the side of the road. Hugely popular now, as we saw in the press conference on Friday. Was just packed out with journalists who largely had come to ask questions of the great Kenenisa, why he was still so motivated to keep going at the age of 42. And Kenenisa, at the moment, looking very good, right at the front of that leading group. There's Mayita Mayouf. She ran in the Olympic Games in Paris in August.
Again, there's the splits of those chasing those national records. There's a few that are inside them, and Cormac just outside at the moment. You can see Mayouf, as Richard just mentioned, there 11 seconds inside that split through the early stages of the race. But I do say that it is early stages, and to be a few seconds inside, the more telling point's going to be probably around about the 30-35 kilometre split, where that's where we can maybe really start to get excited. But the organisers, I do like that, the fact that it's not just about the first across the line, or just about the World or Olympic qualification, but celebrating all national records. The number of national records that have been set in the half or the marathon over the years is something very, very special. Something that we know almost with certainty that we're going to be adding to that today. So, dive for the drinks, and always a split in the pack when this happens. Those that choose to sit back, and those that maybe Adola there, he's one that's been sat on the back of the group, and don't know whether he's just biding his time or whether he is looking a little bit fatigued. So a Berlin winner in 2021, no races in 2024. That always fascinates me, the way athletes can almost have no races for such an extended period of time and then just jump straight back in to the deep end. So he's so consistent though when he does race, and someone that, well, he knows how to race on the large scale against the very best.
Yeah, I think Guya Adola, he was due to run in Frankfurt at the end of October, and actually got sick just before that race, and so his agent asked if he could get a late entry to this race. That's why he's here. But actually, James, as you were saying, he is one of the athletes who seems to be struggling a little bit to stay with this very, very fast pace. There's a nice view of Kenenisa. Unlike last year, when he actually dropped back from the leading group, he's the one who's really been right at the front of that leading group with Sisai Lema and his compatriot Demiso Legessa. So the three Ethiopians behind the three pacemakers, just behind them the two Kenyans, Daniel Mateko and Sebastian Sawe. Just behind Sawe is Deresa Geleta, the Ethiopian, and then right at the back of that group we've got Bahano Legessa, Amdalak Baliu and Guye Adola. Those are the 9 athletes. Guye Adola, some of you might remember, had that epic race with Elliot Kipchoge back in 2017 in Berlin, when actually he had a few seconds lead over Kipchoge, and for a moment we thought that Kipchoge's unbeaten record, this was 7 years ago, might be coming to an end. But Kipchoge did win that race in Berlin 2017, but Guye Adola, he really came to prominence then. That's when he finished second in his best time, 2:03.46. Well, that's a nice view of Carlos Mayo, projected finishing time 2:05.44. Well, that would be very, very impressive, running his debut here.
Yeah, that'll also be right around the Spanish national record as well, and that is also something celebrated by the organisers here. Jose Antonio Radalante puts together such a strong Spanish field every year.
I think it's 25,000 euros for a new Spanish record. So Carlos Mayo, he's got his eye on that, so has Ibrahim Chikia. And on the women's side, we'll be seeing whether Mayita Mayouf can improve her own Spanish record, 2:21.27. Kenenisa having a quick glance at his watch, you know, as is Guye Adola right at the back of that group. So it's interesting, that last drink station was actually just short of 12 miles. So the runners now, they're turning right and they're very near back to Malvarosa Beach. This is where they'll go past the 20-kilometer point, and then they'll take another right, and that will take them west back down towards the old town. So they're at 12.5 kilometers now.
You might have seen on the screen there that they went through 20 kilometers. Wait for the official split, and it was just outside 58 minutes, which I think will give them around about projected time at the halfway of around about 61:15. And so just slightly slower than the top end of what they might have expected. But again, there's quality and depth in this league group, and there's some runners that don't even look like they've broken sweat yet. Sawe looks like he is out for his Sunday run in Valencia this morning. But, this is still the very early stages as they come towards the halfway point. So there's still a lot of running to go. And, the pace is doing a great job at the moment. There's still 3 of them. That's going to be really important the further they can continue into the race. Last check we had, the chase group behind were around about 30 to 40 seconds. That may have extended with the elite women as well, operating very consistently. Just the pace had just given a direction. There you go. I wondered how it was going to work when they came towards the drink station, and just the direction and support of the pacer, not just in leading the pace, but directing them for those drink stations.
Yeah, there's a nice view of the 3 pacemakers. Projected time at the moment, 2:02.34. Well, that's still very fast. Remember, the fastest time in the world this year, set in Chicago by John Correa, 2:02.44. So even if they finish in 2:02.34, which would be outside the course record set by Lemmer last year, that would be a world-leading time, which would delight the race organisers, sort of furthering the reputation of Valencia as the place to run fast times, but the pacemaker's doing a great job at the moment, just outside that 61-minute targeted time for the half distance.
So yeah, the chase group, Mayo's in the third of those groups, so we 51 seconds. The likes of Ed Cesarek, Hilary Kipkoech, there's Dessa is also in there. Abraham, the Swiss athlete, this is his last ever marathon. I saw him spectacularly win in Barcelona this year in a national record 2:05:01, but he also at the age of 42 deciding this is his last marathon, so he's in that chase group behind, and at the moment he's operating, I think, in around about national record pace as well. And Mayo in that third group, they are operating at 2:05 and a half, and he looks a little bit better than he did a few kilometers ago. They're running around about 4:47 per kilometer to just inside or around about 3 minutes. I should say, sorry, 4:47 per mile and around about 3 minutes per kilometer in that third group. The fact that they're doing that in a third group, Richard, that is the depth here in Valencia.
Yeah, incredibly deep field, and the leading athletes, well, Guyardola looks to be working hard. He's just a few meters back from his compatriot, also in the blue Adidas vest, Anderlak Biliu, halfway 61:17. So as we were seeing a little bit earlier, projected finish time 2:02:34. So they're 42 seconds down on the time that Lemmer and the leaders went through last year. They went through in 60:35, but still on for a very fast time, and a good group of them, led by Lemmer and Teresa Galetta, who has actually moved up a little bit, and he's now right on the shoulder of Vincent Ngayo in 3:94, one of the three pacemakers. Guyardola at the back, working hard, but he is still in contact. Adola, number 5, running alongside Anderlak Biliu, also from Ethiopia, in number 8. And this is when the runners they cross paths with the fun runners, and they're going to turn their right down this beautiful avenue. Valencia is full of tree-lined avenues. It's one of the reasons, I think, that it feels like a very fast course. These wide tree-lined avenues, very flat roads, very good road surface. It was something that Sarah Hall commented on in the press conference. And there we have another look at the national records, which are being attacked by the German and Israeli athletes. Maru Teferi, he's in the race, got a best time of 2:05:42 from his run in Amsterdam 6 weeks ago, and he's chasing the national record set by Gashau Ayala. 2:04:53 is the Israeli national record.
Yeah, Tadessa Abraham on the screen there. As I mentioned earlier, is he going to close out his career with a national record? That would be something very, very special. Teferi that, yeah, as you said, ran Amsterdam just 6 weeks ago, 2:05:42 there, and the said his recovery's gone really well. To come back just 6 weeks later, his superb powers of recovery, but also probably showing the magic of the super shoes and the ability to stay fueled and hydrated in marathons. Be disappointed a little bit with his 26th in the Olympic Games, but you know, someone that has medaled at the World Championships, he did that the year before, so he would have hoped to have been in contention in Paris, but that course was tough. Those chasing national records, there's a healthy number of them in that group behind. Just over 62 minutes through the halfway mark. So the elite women, a couple of minutes away from their halfway split. Thinking at 20-kilometer time, they've maintained it. There you go, 2 seconds inside course record pace. So the women went through last year 67:29 through the halfway mark. So looking to be very, very similar today.
Yeah, Magetu Alamu, she actually did run in the Olympics, had a disappointing race there. I was talking with her coach Haji Ajilo a few days ago, and he told me that she was actually sick going into the race. So that is one of the very few marathons that she's run over the last 3 years where she hasn't had a good result. Her last big city marathon was in London in April, and she ran her best time 2:16:34. And if we go back to last year, she had two very good results. Third place in Chicago, 2:17:09, and then 18 months ago in London ran 2:18:37, just behind Sifan Hassan. So Magetu Alamu, very consistent performer, leaving aside that disappointment from the Olympic Games in Paris due to sickness. There's a nice view of a graphic of the leading men, 42 seconds outside the course record pace, but actually Sisai Lema, when he went through halfway in 60:35, he did slow slightly in the second half when he ran his 2:01:48 course record here.
Yeah, and you can see the projected time there in comparison to last year, and it's that control over the last 2 kilometres, so they have maintained it. There was a big increase last year, one of the 5K splits, as you can see on the screen just then. But they've maintained the pace, so this is going to be interesting now for the next 5-10 kilometres. Who's feeling it? You can just see it just starting to splinter at some of the drink stations. Sarway still looks very, very good on the left of the screen, just behind the pacemakers, and maybe the first sign of a little bit of fatigue in Kanis Bakili, but unless he just went back for his drink, that sometimes is a real key factor, that the importance of getting their drink on board. They have to drop back to get it. And he's so experienced, he won't panic if that was the case. So he is probably the most experienced runner in this race today by a country mile.
Yep, we should know never to write off Kenenisa. We watched him here run last year so well, but yeah, it is a little bit worrying for him, because the pace this year isn't quite as fast as it was last year when we saw him drop back from the leaders. So Kenenisa himself said in the press conference a couple of days ago he wasn't in peak shape. He wasn't coming into the race trying to break the course record, but looks as though he might be struggling a little bit. So the women going through halfway in 67:15, well, that is considerably inside course record pace. Remember, Amina Bariso, her time 2:14:58, so that would be a halfway of 107:29. They've gone through 107:15, so well inside Amina Bariso's course record. It is interesting that it looks as though Magetu is now, if she's not on her own, Stella Chisang, the Ugandan, who holds national records over 5,000, 10,000, half marathon and the marathon for Uganda. Looks as though she's not as close as she once was to Magetu Alamu.
Yeah, Chisang going through the same halfway split. So there was a gap back to Mesa, and then in third place on the tracker in front of me, around about 50 seconds, I think, behind. So that's the gap between the lead two female athletes to the chase group behind, and then just going through some of the splits. Mayouf through the halfway split, just coming up to the halfway point now. So wait for confirmation of the Spanish athlete Isabel Bat-Doyle. Was quick through 20 kilometers and 66:44. So again, can't be far off that halfway split of around about 70 minutes. So, and they're coming up now, yes, I think 70 minutes through halfway, 70-20, I think, through that halfway split. Mauve right there as well with 70-20 as well. So at the moment operating at Spanish and Australian national record pace. And the Carlos Mayo, a consistent 10K runner, so good 10K World Championship, top 10 finisher, and sub 60 for half marathon. The time was the Spanish national record for that distance, and he's within touching distance at the moment of that national record over the marathon distance. But there's Chizang, I think, on the screen. Richard, she's dropped back slightly.
She's about 15-20 meters down from Magetu, but also I think she looks as though she is working quite a lot harder than Magetu Alamu. There's a nice view of the leader in the women's race, Magetu Alamu, in that pale green vest.
So, you know, when you were running Olympic Games, Richard, you did so well in Olympic Games, but someone like Alamu who didn't finish, to go from that, you know, that would have been the absolute aim of the summer, to not finish there. How hard is that to pick yourself up and obviously, you know, to get back, you know, the mindset and the hard training that's needed to get back in shape?
Yeah, I mean, obviously she will have been very disappointed. I mean, we've talked about how hard it is to make the Ethiopian team, so she probably went in to that race with high expectations, but in some ways, you know, when you are sick, it's a very obvious reason why she didn't perform, and probably took a short break, and here she is less than 4 months later running her third marathon of the year. So yeah, would have been very disappointed, but obviously has come in with big goals, and Haji Ajilo, when I spoke to him a few days ago, said she was very much hoping that she could not only run a PB but attack the course record, and she's doing just that today, well inside course record pace as they go well beyond the half distance.
So some notable athletes through the halfway mark. Sarah Hall through in 71.40 in 12th place. Clara Evans, the Brit, in 19th place in 72.20. So that's the depth at the moment. Top 20 inside 2:25 pace here. So there's Sander Moen, the Norwegian athlete who's run so well again over the half marathon, over the marathon. Just a little look over his shoulder. His best back in 2017 for Fuka. I don't think we've seen the results yet this year, Richard, of the Fuka Marathon that would have been during the night. So we need to refresh our laptops, see who did come out on top in that race. So he's through halfway in 62.22. So again, inside national record pace, and there's such a big number of athletes chasing those national records, and you can see that group there with their pacemakers as well. So they were a minute down at halfway, so they were at 62.12 through that halfway mark, so exactly a minute. So there's some good runners in this group, but I don't know whether they can chase. So this might even be the third group now, around about the 2:05 mark, so maybe Moen's just slowed down to join the third group.
Well, this leading group now is starting to split up. We've seen Kenenisa drop back, and very interestingly, Guya Adola, who 15 minutes ago looked to be struggling at the back of that group. He's the one who is now right up with the pacemakers. Guya Adola, Sisai Lema, Ethiopia, Daniel Mateko of Kenya, Teresa Galeta, Bahanu Legesa, and Sebastian Sawe running his debut. So 6 athletes now right at the front of the race, and they have still got the 3 pacemakers. Remember, the 2 of those 3 pacemakers in the red vest, the red pacemaking vest, and then the other pacemaker 393, Eric Sang, in the NN colours right in the middle of that group of 3. So it is Amdalak Baluyo, number 8, who is the next athlete to drop off.
Yeah, his form's gone. You can see that the lead group are disappearing off into the distance, chasing those electric vehicles. The check of the watch, Adola, I almost wrote him off a few kilometres ago. He looked fatigued, he looked tired at the back, looked uninterested, but that's what the early stage of the marathon is about. It's about clipping out those miles, those kilometres, and almost like a game of poker, not showing any of your cards, because there is so much running. But one thing I did say is he's very, very experienced, and he's also very good at getting on the podium at big races. But almost his little surge, and maybe just takes a little look to go back to the back of the group. Maybe he showed too many of his cards, then he wants to go back and be a little bit anonymous at the back. But someone that almost can't be anonymous, Cecil Lemmer, again, his ability to podium in the major city marathons is only a few athletes have a better record than him, and obviously that time that he threw down 12 months ago, I think cemented his record in top-class marathon running, and it was so impressive 12 months ago. And yeah, the talk said he's not in the shape coming in, but maybe that could be a red herring as well, Richard.
Great view of the great Miguel Indurain, five-time winner of the Tour de France in the 1990s, has been at this race for quite a few years, doing pace-making duties, but in a rather easier style on his bike. Great to see Indurain.
You don't get anyone better with road handling skills than Big Mig out there, so he'll be fascinated by this chase on the national record. So just 20 seconds outside, 70 minutes through halfway. So we keep an eye on those splits as we chase those national records, and the pace you can see at the front. Alamu, who is now a lead female in this race, and almost her lead is growing stride by stride. And now the next few splits, Richard, is going to be looking at that course record.
Yeah, interestingly, Alamu has just got one official pacemaker. I mean, she's got plenty of men around her who I'm sure will probably stay with her most of the distance. But there at the front of that group in the red vest is the designated pacemaker for Alamu, attempting to go under Barisso's course record, 2:14.58. On the right of the screen, great view of Cecil Lemmer. Incredible career over the last 12 years. Won his first marathon back in 2012, and since then has run 26 marathons. Today his 27th marathon. There's just a view of Amdalak Biliou, and just behind Biliou is Kenenisa. Sadly, it looks as though he is struggling and falling further back from this leading group. Nice view, number 10, Sebastian Sawe. Real excitement as to what he can do at the marathon here, running his debut. He's had a good preparation. We've heard from his coach, Claudio Berardelli. But a little bit earlier, he was nearer to the front, but at the moment, just at the back, but still very much in contact with the front of the race. There's another good view of Carlos Mayo, and Spanish national record, remember, 2:05.48 set here by Tariku Navales, who's not racing in Valencia today. But both Ibrahim Chikir and Carlos Mayo just a little bit under that, well, certainly the pace of Tariku Navales' 2:05.48. Well, that's the end of the race for Amdalak Biliou.
Yeah, holding his left hamstring. He dropped off the group and deciding to fight another day. That 2:06.40 lifetime best won't be revised today. Went with it in the early stages, and whether it's hamstring or even checking down on his Achilles, that he'll be devastated with that. You can see Kenenisa Bekele on the right of the screen as well. He's almost looking at the concrete, looking at the floor. You know, whether he does decide to finish. He often does go through some bad patches in races, Kenenisa, and does come back. He has almost been pulled off the race side as another athlete's gone from that lead group. I'm trying to see who that is. Someone...
I think that may be one of the pacemakers. Yeah.
It was Sang, yes. Panic over. So Eric Sang, his job is done. So getting them through 25 kilometres. So still 2 pacemakers left out there now. And if they can get to 30 kilometres, that is almost the golden distance for pacemakers, because then it sets up the last business end of the race here in Valencia. So again, welcome to the 2024 Valencia Marathon. Trinidad Alfonso, EDP, we're absolutely delighted to have you watching wherever you are in the world. The men's and women's races are hotting up. You can see 25 kilometres, just a slight drop off of pace. So even though she's moving away from the chasers behind, just losing a few seconds to that course record. Miso's record inside 2 hours and 15 minutes. So 1 hour 19:37 was course record pace. 1 hour 19:45 was the 25 kilometre split. So no need to panic. Just a subtle increase over the next 2 kilometres could pull that time back very quickly. As Adola, who looked so good, didn't he, Richard? Having not looked so good, now he's dropped back off the pack.
Well, it does look as though in the men's race the pace has picked up, and it is Lemmer who's, I think, responsible. The 2 pacemakers still leading that group, but Sisai Lemmer, who is one of those athletes who loves to run fast right from the start. We saw it here last year. That's how he won the race, going clear as soon as the pacemakers dropped out. We saw it again earlier this year in Boston when he ran that incredibly fast first half, 60:19, and that massive lead in Boston, and somehow managed to hang on to the lead to win that race. Second consecutive victory for Lemmer. And Lemmer, although we heard from his coach Gemadu Degafer that he hadn't had the perfect build-up for this race. The moment still looking very, very good. 5 athletes together, and it is Guya Adola, the Ethiopian, who's dropped back from that leading group.
Daniel Matiko looks effortless at the moment. He looks really good for me.
So the athletes are now, I think this is the Torres de Serranos, one of the famous monuments in the town. This is at around 28 kilometres.
That's right, Richard. To the lung of the city, the riverbed that is a beautiful place for running. 9 kilometres of beautiful trails, and as you said, the Torre de Serranos is a site that is a beautiful part of Valencia. If you haven't been here, wonderful mix of real historic areas and real history to the city, but also the area that we're in, the beautiful start-finish area, just shows the modern element of Valencia as well. So there's some more national records being chased for, Richard. You can see the Italian national record, and there's a couple inside that Norwegian national record at the moment.
Yeah, Elias Awani, he's coached by Massimo Magnani, and remember the national record for Italy, Yamani Crippa, 2:06.06, which was set in Seville earlier this year. Maru Teferi, he's under the Israeli national record of 2:04.53, and that's a lot faster than Maru Teferi's ever run in his life before. And what's incredible, as we mentioned earlier, is that Teferi's running his 2nd marathon in 6 weeks, having finished 3rd in Amsterdam at the end of October. So, yep, some national records under threat. There's Carlos Mayo running alongside the Kenyan debutant Matthew Kimeli. So on the right of the screen is the leader in the women's race, Megetu Alamu. Looks as though she is now clear of the 2nd placed female, Stella Chisang. Still plenty of male athletes around her, including her designated pacemaker. And on the left of the screen, the 5 athletes following the 2 pacemakers, and it is the Kenyan Vincent Ngayo who is really doing a great job. Well, the 2 pacemakers, they're going to clearly lead the group through 30 kilometres.
Magatu Alamu has a lead over Stella Chizang of around about 14-15 seconds, so it's still closable for the Ugandan athlete, who's again running way inside national record pace at the moment. And Misven is over a minute back in third. Evelyn Chichir, another athlete who's a minute back on the lead in 4th place. And then there are gaps, but on the leaderboard it shows gaps. But as we go back to Medith Maouf, who's also through 25 kilometres, maintaining around about 5 minutes and 29 seconds. You can see, yes, 20 seconds inside national record at 25 kilometres. So knocking on that door of breaking 2:21 today. And, she has run faster than the national record when she was representing Morocco, but today it's about how fast she can run to set those Spanish figures, and projected 2 hours 20 and 40 seconds. So maintaining really consistent form through the first 25 kilometres. So there's again some beautiful sights of the city. Christmas decorations are out. The numbers on the street, you can see, enjoying their running. This is a city that celebrates fast running, but also mass running. The welcome runners from all over the world. The Kenyan and Ethiopian runners that we have in this league group. Our 2 pacers, they're still there, Richard, aren't they? And they're still doing such a great job of making sure that they do keep this pace till 30 kilometres. That's going to be interesting to see where the 30 kilometre split lies. There it is there. 1 hour 27:20. So last year 1:26:04. So significantly now outside course record. So they would have to really go through it over the last 12 kilometres to get near the course record.
Yeah, the pacemaker's doing a really good job. If they're going to keep going beyond the 30k point, which is what exactly they are doing. 391 is Samuel Milo and 394 Vincent Nyago, and it is the 394 athlete, both Kenyans, Vincent and Nyago. Interestingly, he paced here in Valencia the end of October when Agnes Ngetich was attacking the world record for the half marathon, and it'll be interesting to see whether they keep going. And still looks full of running. Number 394 Vincent Nyago has actually opened up a little gap on that leading group of 5 athletes who's running. They're running with the other pacemaker. One athlete we haven't yet mentioned in much detail is Bahanu Legessa, really experienced Ethiopian runner. Had his purple patch in 2019-2020 when he recorded 2 victories in Tokyo. There's number 3, Legessa, Bahanu Legessa, in the NN colours, running his 12th marathon here today.
Yeah, Nyago looks good. He's not got too much on his previous record, so obviously his agent and his training group knew that he's a lot better shape to make sure he could pace, but he's maybe one to look out for in the future. And unless he's been given license to finish, there are normally now contracts, aren't there, in pacemakers, details that they're not allowed to finish sometimes. It's part of the deal to make sure that they do obviously end up doing their job, but they also don't get too carried away. And there he goes, maybe doing his job to 30 kilometres, or he's maybe noticing that they are slightly down on that time needed, so maybe just trying to wake them up to get them back onto that course record pace. But Isabel Bat-Doyle, so some quick times. She was a fraction inside 50 minutes through 15 kilometres, so you can see around about 33:40 for that last 10 kilometres, so still inside national record. So is Stein, the South African, who's about 45 seconds inside. I think it's her own national record, so
also set in Valencia. I mean, I think that's what's so striking about so many of the personal bests coming into this race that quite a few of the athletes who are here trying to set national records or trying to improve their best times, those best times go back either to the race here 12 months ago or 2 years ago. Now that's one of the pacemakers who has dropped out right at the front of the race. In fact, it looks as though both pacemakers might have gone, because now on our screen we've got 5 athletes, and Daniel Mateko, the Kenyan, is looking around. No, we've got one of the pacemakers. So it is the pacemaker who was right at the front, Vincent Inyago, who has dropped out, and now Samuel Milo. Was still very unusual for a pacemaker to be in the race beyond the 30-kilometre point, but I'm sure the leading athletes won't mind that. Daniel Mateko just accelerating and running alongside the pacemaker and actually having a few words with Milo. I'm sure that he's hoping that the pacemaker will continue for a few more kilometres, but they've done a great job, the 3 pacemakers, and Milo still in the race. They've gone past 31 kilometres now, and interestingly, Cisse Lema, defending champion, is the one who has dropped back.
Cisse Lema has gone, yes, so the defending champion is not in this lead group. Daniel Mateko looks so good. You can just see that stride that he's got, loping along, and they're wearing number 1. Cisse Lema reminds me of a boxer sometimes, and he's not afraid to throw a few punches. He did that 12 months ago, but he's going to have to take a few here, and he's going to have to try and close that gap. And unless he's maintaining the pace that they've been running, and maybe the pace has picked up. We did see one of the pacemakers going off the front almost to invite them to pick the pace up. Cisse Lema talked about it wasn't the perfect build-up, and now that gap, and maybe Sebastian Sarway just a little lean to the left, and maybe this is the first time he's showing some fatigue, because the pace, I think, has definitely picked up. And it has to go. This is his 3rd debut, Richard, so having not gone to plan 2 times before, he's dusted himself off, and probably learned from those 2 previous races in Chicago, in London. His half marathon pedigree, when you go through it, it's just so impressive, Richard, isn't it, that you know, it was almost a given that he was going to transfer to the marathon. It didn't happen twice, but the marathon, as you know well, is about learning the distance.
Yeah, one of the people who've been talking up his potential is his training partner, Eliud Kipchoge. Mateko, part of the great group of Patrick Sang, and trains alongside Eliud Kipchoge. And there we just see the 3rd of the pacemakers who's done a great job. He has dropped out, but this is very, very interesting, because it's Dessa Galeta in the green vest who has set off with Mateko. These 2 are now opening up a few meters over the Ethiopian Behanu Legessa, and Sebastian Sarway really having to work hard to stay in contact.
Mateko looks really good through 20 miles. So were those runners sat at home or maybe lying on the sofa and have run a marathon before? No, the marathon really probably only starts at 20 miles. In the fatigue in the legs, in the quads, and at the moment, Daniel Mateko looks like he's got none of that. Just see that heel recovery, and almost looks as if he's on the track, very relaxed arm style. Almost looks like there's not a bead of sweat on the NM runner's head. And this is very impressive, Richard, and probably with less than half an hour of running to go, Galeta is the only runner that can go with him right now, and they are in single file for being in that big group for so long. Sebastian Sarway is trying to stay in contention, but I think the pace has just picked up front. It's going to be interesting to see what this next 5K split ends up being.
It will be. I mean, they're less than 10 kilometres from the finish, having gone through the 20-mile point. And it is Mateko who's really picked up the pace. Galeta, the Ethiopian, having to work very hard to stay with Mateko. Remember, Mateko was 2nd here in Valencia in the half marathon just 6 weeks ago when Kajelcha broke the world record. He ran 57:30. Mateko finished 2nd in 58:17, which was a lifetime best for Mateko over the half marathon. So Mateko does know Valencia. but running his first marathon here and looking very good. And there's the leading female in 2:02, Maratona Alamu, getting some instructions from the athletes around her. Yeah, got two pacemakers, one in the red vest and one in the green vest. Oh, and Mateko, well, he's opened up 5 or 6 meters over Galetta. So there we see our first 4 athletes. Daniel Mateko still looking very composed out in front, number 11. Second place, Delisa Galetta. And there's the leading Spanish athlete, Maita Mayuf, accompanied by the great Miguel Indurain on the bike, doing the pacemaking duties for Mayuf, chasing her own Spanish record.
You could maybe just see some signs of fatigue on Mayuf there, but, operating at that national record pace. Alamu looks so relaxed again, very much like Mateo, where she's just floating along the surface. But 31 seconds down on the course record, 1:35.55 through 30 kilometers. So she's going to need to pick it up. But she's there or thereabouts, inside her own lifetime best. Performance 2:16.34 to around about the 2:15 high mark at the moment. But it is single file with similar gaps between Galetta in second place, Sebastian Sarway, Mateko, the leader in that NN singlet, wearing number 11. He just does not look in any stress whatsoever. So it's just about now the fatigue levels in the body in the later stages. Has he hydrated? Has he refueled? Has he learned from his previous 2 marathon attempts that didn't quite go to plan? But that's sign of a great athlete, where they learn from their mistakes. And he threw caution to the wind previously, and it didn't end up turning out how he hoped. But today, and that shape that he's shown in the Valencia half marathon a few weeks ago, and he's probably in marathon shape then, or marathon training then. So to come out and run 58.17 that day behind Gajelta's world record, he just does look so good on this surface, and so relaxed, so economical. Talk about the economy of runners, so the effort for the speed that he's putting in. And Sebastian Sarway looks like he's trying to close the gap. He's moved into second. So 2 of the world's very best half marathon runners, one making their real debut, Sarway, one of them trying to finish their first marathon. They're still going to be the unknown, aren't they, Richard? That is the fascinating thing about the marathon, that anything can happen in the final kilometres.
Yeah, and I think you referred to the fact that Mateko has actually started 2 marathons before and dropped out at both of them. So that is the question mark. You know, has he got his fueling right? Has he got his training right? That's going to carry him over these final 7 or 8 kilometres. He's put in a very fast 5 kilometres. It will be interesting to see what his split is for this 5K up to the 35K point. But Mateko at the moment has got about 40 metres lead over the 2nd and 3rd place. But Sebastian Sarway, well, it's always hard to know what athletes are experiencing, but it looked as though he might have gone through a bit of a difficult patch a few minutes earlier, and he's hauled himself back into 2nd place. But Mateko's still got a decent lead at this point, with just over 20 minutes of running to go.
It's only a very few number of the pacemakers are out there now. Their jobs have been done. It is about racing. It is a maybe foreshortening of the camera angle here, but whether that is starting to close now. Sebastian Sarway looked as if there was a little bit of fatigue, but maybe he's just weathered the storm, and coming up to an hour and 40 minutes of running. These athletes would have known the work that's gone in to get them here. They would have trained over similar distances, similar paces. But you can't run a full marathon in training, and that's the fascinating thing. So Mateko, you can see 12 degrees on the advertising board on the side, so lovely conditions here in Valencia. Very minimal wind, no elevation on the course. And we even looked at the later stages, didn't we, Richard? We hadn't realised that last 800 metres is quick, so if it does come down to a race here, and we could well see people closing very fast over that last half a mile, but a lot of running to go. Over 20 minutes of running in this elite men's race, around about 35 minutes of running in this elite women's race. Alamu on the right-hand side of the screen, and again, the production team doing a fantastic job with the images we've got throughout this whole race. And we hope you're enjoying it wherever you are in the world. This is the 2024 Valencia Marathon, Trinidad Alfonso EDP. And we're delighted to bring you such great images and fantastic running. So there's the chase group. We're getting an update on that distance, Richard.
Yes, Magetu is leading. There's a picture of the third-placed athlete in the women's race, Turu Mesvin. She's just through 19.4 miles. Stella Chizang from Uganda is between Magetu and Mesvin. There we are at 30 kilometres. So Alamu has got a lead of 45 seconds over the Ugandan Chizang, and Turu Mesvin of Ethiopia just over a minute and a half down on Alamu and almost a minute down on Chizang. So they're the leading three athletes in the women's race. Alamu on our screen. Meanwhile, at the front of the men's race, it's a fascinating battle because this race has certainly not been won. It looks as though Sebastian Sawe and Teresa Geleta, the second and third place athletes, have closed that gap, and that gap now is down to, what, about 20 metres, maybe just over 20 metres, but Mateko has got a real battle on his hands.
Well, the reason that it all splintered, that it split up, 14:21, and is the quickest 5K split of the race. And Sebastian Sawe, that's almost probably why he just bided his time, but pick up of pace in that split. And that's why the race is well and truly on, and putting that time back. So Shakir there, I think that's just dropped off one of those groups behind, wearing 22. So we'll try and get an update on his projected time. So he was in 25th place, and I think through 30 kilometres, so he'll be coming up to the 35 kilometres, but he was on 2:05.55 pace, and there you go, 2:41.43 is the 35K split. And you can see they have pulled some time back on that course record, but they're still a minute outside, but there's still maybe three athletes in contention here, so maybe the course record is gone, and it is all about who's going to take the 2024 Valencia Marathon title. As you can see, that 17-second gain on the course record. But whether they can maintain this ferocious pace in the closing stages, and Mexico just for the first time, just showing a little bit of fatigue, just a little look over his shoulder. That speed and cadence has just slowed down just very, very slightly. And just maybe the first signs of fatigue. And Geleta, he looks pretty good at the back, and Sawe, who maybe's weathered the storm. I think we've got a race on our hands, Richard.
We've got a race on our hands for sure. Mateko, I think for the first time, aware that he is being hunted down, and that gap is very, very gradually closing. And it's very interesting how now it's Sawe back in second. A few moments ago, it was Geleta who was leading them, but the three of them athletes are going to come back together, and it's going to be very interesting to see how Mateko responds as he gets scored.
Yeah, because Geleta, obviously, you know, we were so impressed with him in Seville, and he smashed it that day. He would have obviously been half delighted with such a good finish in the Olympics, but to be so close to a medal would have also been disappointed. As Sebastian Sawe, I thought he might just sit on Mateko then, but he doesn't. He literally just glides by, and look at that, such a change. Mateko goes from looking ominous, looking as if he was going to float away, was going to run away with it. Sebastian Sawe weathered the storm. That's Daniel Mateko just got it wrong very, very slightly again, but you can just see that fatigue. You can see the beads of sweat that just weren't there. 5 kilometres. Sebastian Sawe, he's just gone now into a 10-15 metre lead.
And growing,
Wow.
I think the thing about Sarway is that he is a winner. I mean, you just look at his record. Run 9 half marathons, won 7 of them. Run 10 kilometers, won 5 of them. And he's won his most recent races. He won in Copenhagen in September over the half marathon. He won the 10K in July in Peachtree, and just the way he's taken control of this race over the last few minutes and really looks full of confidence and so composed. And it's fascinating how this race has changed in the last 10 minutes. Matejko, who had that gap of 40-50 meters a few kilometers ago, now struggling to stay with the second place athlete Goleta.
Well, I was lucky enough to be in Copenhagen for that half marathon, and he obviously moved away from Jacob Kiplimo in the latter stages, and Sarway looked brilliant that day, but was just biding his time when the pace increased. But I think you have to in the marathon, you have to check yourself, don't you? You've got to make sure that you're ready to maintain that pace, and there is going to be a bit of fatigue in there. But the moment then that he almost weathered that storm, Matejko, and Goleta just can't go with it either. Goleta looked superb as well a few kilometers ago. Now he's in the battle for second almost, but Sebastian Sarway is a ominous figure. He's 28, as you said. That half marathon record is so impressive, and he's had a little bit of success on the track as well. The 1 hour world record a couple of years ago in Brussels, a distance that isn't run that often, but he's got some great concentration. And he looks so good now, Richard.
He looks so good, doesn't he? Very, very smooth. Still very good cadence. Matejko, the Kenyan, appears to be struggling, and very, very tough for him, having had that lead just a few kilometers earlier. But there's a nice close-up of Sebastian Sarway. Highly experienced road runner, but today running his first 42-kilometer race here in Valencia, and looking very good. And look at that gap. That gap is increasing. It'll be very interesting to see what his 5K split is. I think this race has been a real battle of attrition. I mean, it hasn't been very level paced. That 25K to 30K 5K split, 14:11, which was when the race really broke up. And then the last 5K, 14:38, that was through to 35 kilometers. And I think the nature of this race and the uneven pace is what that the runners are really struggling with now. Matejko dropping back from Teresa Goleta, second and third place, but Sebastian Sarway right at the front. He appears to be extending his lead, and the runners have now turned back towards the city centre. This is the stretch which will take them back to the famous North Station, which is at 38 kilometres.
Yeah, they'll be sensing that they are heading now towards that finish. They're in the business end of the marathon distance now. 1 hour and 48 minutes on the race clock. There's some people hurting out there. There's people that are very close to their national records. Some went out at some very brisk paces through the halfway marks. And Goleta, the Ethiopian athlete, just having a look over his shoulder. So consistent again. He's someone that is a very consistent performer. But he won't give up till the end. You can see almost that he's fixated on the back of Sebastian Sarway. But Sarway, look at that. That's a great shot side on. You can see the speed of the cyclists over the other side of the barrier, that the speed of their cadence to keep up with Sarway. And they're on a bike, and he is pounding his way through the streets of Valencia. And that gap is growing, and we're trying to get an update of that gap. But it looks to be maybe to 15, even 20 seconds now, Richard.
Yeah, he still looks very, very smooth. Great leg turnover. Has a quick glance at his watch, but Sebastian Sarway, we can't quite yet see how big that gap is, but I think it's still a very, very good gap. Started out actually as a 1500-meter athlete. And since then, well, look, we can see dessa more than 100 meters back down the tarmac. On the right of the screen is the Spanish athlete Ibrahim Chakir. Looks as though, yes, Chakir is the first Spanish athlete, so he's in front of Carlos Mayo.
He is. He's gone through 35 kilometres, 1 hour 45:07, but dropped off national record pace. And there you go. The splits on the screen represent that as well. So 24 seconds outside. So given how much he was up in the early stages, I don't think he's going to pull that. And you can see that some of the wheels have come off. Sonja Mo in there now, 2 minutes outside the national record pace. But Tavera is close to that Israeli record, but now 10 seconds outside that. Ilyas Anui, so he is inside the record, and he's absolutely flying at the moment. So very impressive over the marathon distance. And yeah, whether that record, that Cripper national record of 2:06 is going to get revised today. But, the winner of the Valencia Marathon is going to be revised today. So Cesar Lema was there in the early stages, over halfway, but had to give way to some of the up-and-coming new marathon runners. Sebastian Sarway, this is his debut. I think that might be Mark Rogue there on the bike there, just enjoying the elite field that he's put together, because it is, Richard, a phenomenal elite field, but we are maybe just down to one now at the front.
Yeah, I think this is really exciting for world marathon running. I mean, Sebastian Sarway, he could be one of the new stars in marathon running over the next few years. Mark Roach, the elite athlete coordinator, has talked about this race as the race for debutants. We only need to think back to 2 years ago when Kiptum came here and ran that amazing time, 2:01:53, as a Marathon debutant. Also, that day, Letesenbet Gidai ran the fastest female debut performance, which has obviously since been bettered. But Valencia not only building its reputation for fast times, but building a reputation as the place for newcomers to world marathon running to make their mark. And Sebastian Sarway certainly appears to be making his mark here today, running his debut and looking so good as he comes down towards 40 kilometers.
1 hour 53, the 40k split last year when the course record was revised, 1 hour 55 and 12 seconds. That record that had stood from that fastest ever debut, Kelvin Kiptum, the late great Kelvin Kiptum. So still absolutely devastated that we lost such a special athlete. And, he made his name here in Valencia. And, that record was revised last year by Cesar Lema. And, I don't think we're going to get that this year, but we are going to announce a very, very fast debutant in Sebastian Sarway.
So there's Ilyas Awani, the Italian athlete who is chasing Yamani Berhan Cripper's Italian record. And just yesterday I was speaking to his coach, Massimo Magnani, who was very, very excited about Awani's prospects. Came into the race, James, I think you were at that race in Barcelona where he ran 2:07:16. And at the moment he's operating almost 2 minutes quicker, chasing that Italian national record, 2:06:06. Meanwhile, in the women's race, Mageto Alamu has gone through 35 kilometers, 1:52:43, so she is still some way down. A little look of pain and discomfort on her face, but she's got just less than 7 kilometers to run.
Yeah, and her lead is up to a minute now on Chizang. Chizang still operating around about 2:17 pace for the Ugandan. And I think we're slipping outside about 2:15, 2:16 pace now as Mayouf. And Mayouf split at 30 kilometers, but we're waiting for the 35-kilometer split. So the Spanish national record, 2:21:27, and heading towards 35 kilometers. So there are gaps now. There's some tired legs out there, and and we're waiting for the split of Sebastian Sarway through 40 kilometres. You can see 19 seconds for Mayouf inside national record at 30 kilometres, but she's almost got the next 5 kilometre split out the way. So let's see what that split. Alamu on the left of the screen. The course record is going to be safe this year. And you can just see the slight drop of cadence. You can just see a little bit of fatigue. Pacemaker's still there, still helping along, but there's no pacemaker for this man. Sebastian Sarway getting some great cheers and applause from the crowd. They know great racing when they're seeing it. And now almost, I think, into the last 2 kilometres.
Yeah, he's just swinging right back onto what we call the garden route, past that gate, the Porta de la Mar, and he's just got 2 kilometres of running. He's still got a very big lead on the right of the screen. We can see the second-placed athlete, Teresa Galetta, having a great run. This is his 3rd marathon, remember, of 2024, having won in Seville in February, 5th place in the Olympic Games in Paris in August. But it is the debutant, the Kenyan Sebastian Sarway, who is heading for victory here in Valencia.
Well, if my maths are right, 1 hour 55, 52 through 40 kilometres. There you go, 41 seconds. I made that last 5 kilometres 14:08, Richard, 14:08 for that last 5 kilometres. So that's why, again, he's pulled a chunk of time back on that course record. So it is going to be one of the fastest ever debuts over the marathon distance that we've ever seen. And he's edging towards that 2 hours and 2 minute clocking, because he's just got faster and faster and decided, I like that he's going to get his drink on board. That's going to help his recovery for the next race. That's going to help him almost forget the pain, forget the fatigue that he's accumulated over the last 2 kilometres, because barring disaster, he's on his way to take this title.
Yeah, that graphic showed us his results from some of his best half-marathon races. Remember, his last half-marathon was in September when he beat Jacob Kiplimo, ran his best time, his second best time, 58:05. That was just less than 3 months ago. Best time for the half-marathon, 58:02, which was set in Ostia 2 years ago. But Sebastian Sarway stepping up to the marathon today for the first time and really looking great over the last 2 kilometres. Remember, he won the World Championship half marathon in Riga 14 months ago, and today has chosen Valencia for his marathon. Claudio Berardelli said he had a great build-up, so there was a lot of anticipation around his debut here, and he has produced the goods. At 30 kilometres, he was back in 3rd place and struggling to hang on to Teresa Galetta. But over the last 10 kilometres, James, as you said, those splits, 14:11, 25 to 30k, 14:38 from 30 to 35k, and then I think the fastest 5k of the race, up to 40 kilometres, 14:08, and he's now into the final mile, down this beautiful stretch past the Jardim del Turia, which is going to bring them down into Gulliver Park and back to the Ciudad de las Artes y las Ciencias.
Yeah, and that increase in 5k split is why he's got 24 seconds on Galetta behind, and I think on our reckoning that Mateko's another minute back on that. So Daniel Mateko, who looked just so good, he really kick-started the race, and Sebastian Sarway bided his time, and he coming up to the 2 hour mark, can really enjoy this last kilometre. The crowds are enjoying this running, and the last 800 metres is fairly fast as well. So what can he close out? You can see 900 metres to go, so he's going to know so well what this feels like in training. We'll do so many reps around the kilometre mark, but he's way inside that now. Richard, this has just been a superb debut.
Fantastic debut, and slight downhill as he comes back into the start-finish arena. He'll already be able to see the arches, which we can see right in front of our commentary box here. Sebastian Sarre, just about 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes of running to go. Remember, the world leading time for the marathon, 2:02:44, set by John Correa in Chicago less than 2 months ago. And Sebastian Sarre here on his debut looks as though he's not only going to record his first victory at the marathon, but he's going to set a world-leading time. Here we are, 500 meters to go, a very slight uphill as they go over the bridge, and then as he comes onto the carpet, Sarre, you can see how his cadence will change as he runs down this hill, just over 400 meters to run, and he's got a very big lead. I think he is going to set a world-leading time for the marathon.
It's going to be, yes, Richard, a world-leading time. I think he's going to be a fraction outside the course record and a fraction outside the fastest ever debut. But what a debut it's been, the 28-year-old Kenyan. So success over the half marathon multiple times, but doubling the distance today in Valencia and doing it so successfully. Keep an eye on the race clock. He is closing the speed that he's shown in the latter stages. Been so impressive. The crowd know it. I tell you what, this is going to be a time to throw down for the future. Keep an eye on the athlete on the screen. The future of marathon running is here. Another great Kenyan marathon runner to the fore. The race clock is going to be very close to that, 2 hours and 2 minutes. Sebastian Sarre, the Valencia Marathon 2024. Superb bit of running.
Absolutely fantastic finish by Sebastian Sarre. He closed so quickly over those final 7 kilometers. And here's the second place athlete, the Ethiopian Deresa Galeta. Another great performance from him, following up his 5th place in the Olympic Games in Paris. Deresa Galeta of Ethiopia, 2nd place here in Valencia on his first performance in Valencia.
Big lifetime best as well for Galeta, and I tell you what, again, he is becoming Mr. Consistent as well. Just 31 seconds off those medals at the Olympic Games, and the athlete that made the race kick-started it. You can see a contrast in his style of around about 15 kilometers ago, where he looked utterly brilliant. Mateko, though, will still be putting down some very strong numbers. This is his 3rd attempt at the marathon. It's going to be his first finish. I tell you what, the first finish of this man, Sebastian Sarre, was so impressive. But I'm sure I'll have a word with Mateko, almost thanking him for kick-starting the race. The NM runner that really did throw the first big punches in this race. And he is going to finish what is his 3rd marathon that he started. And just a few tweaks, I think, Richard, and I think, again, we've got a very special marathon runner in front of us.
Yeah, I mean, Mateko is still better known as a 10,000 metre and a half marathon runner. Remember, he ran the 10,000 metres in the Paris Olympics in August, finished 11th there, ran the half marathon in October, finished 2nd to Kajelcha, and here today, as you say, James, finishing his first marathon with really tired legs because of really the pace that he injected after the 30-kilometre point. But great to see Mateko finishing 3rd place for Mateko, 2:04:23, and now a rush of runners. Look, there's Alphonse Simbu of Tanzania. What a run for him. He's taking 4th place.
That's a great run by an athlete that's been on the podium at the World Champs, and the time there. Look at this, Richard. I think he's going to smash the German national record. 5th in Rome over the half marathon distance. Look at that. Inside 2 hours and 5 minutes. That's a huge run. Look at that. He's absolutely delighted.
Taken over a minute and a half off the German national record. And this is an athlete, this is the Italian athlete we haven't mentioned. Johannes Cipanelli. What a run from him. His best time, 2:09.46. There's Bahanu Legessa finishing. But just coming across the line there, Johannes Cipanelli. I think that is a new Italian record, because the screen now is showing Ilias Owani, but I think he is the second Italian athlete across the line, because Johannes Cipanelli is already through the finish line.
Some big runs, Richard.
Richard Ringer.
Wow.
He's taken more than a minute and a half off his best. Remember, Ringer came into this race with a best time of 2:07.05. And there's Owani. Well, Owani's run a best time by over a minute, but right in the background is the new Italian record holder who's celebrating. And there's a nice picture from the behind of the new Valencia Marathon champion. There's Cipanelli.
That's Tadesse.
Sorry.
Abraham, isn't it? Taking a bow because he knows that's his final marathon. Hilly Kipkovic was another finisher in their debut. 2 hours, 4:41. Sabisa, this is the American athlete. He's going to be inside 2 hours and 7 minutes, battling for the line. I think coached by, I think Stephen Has. I think it's a big run by the American. 2:06.50. Wow, there's some big times that have been thrown down. Wait for confirmation of them when they do come through. But Cisse Lema, fair play to Cisse Lema, finishing in 2 hours 4:59, just behind that big group. Jurek is the French athlete. He's going to be outside 2:07, but again, so many big runs. And the national records that have been thrown down, the performances that have been put down today.
There's Ibrahim Chikir. He's going to run a lifetime best. Remember, Chikir's best coming into this race, 2:07.48. Well, he crosses the line in 2:07.32. We've just seen Zere Kibron, Norwegian athlete, finishing around his best time. So last year we had 19 athletes under 2A. I think this year we're going to, the depth of the results this year is going to be quite phenomenal.
But also going back to Sebastian Sarway, his second half was inside 61 minutes. I'll make it probably inside 60 minutes and 50 seconds for that second half of the marathon. So threw down a big negative split, and taking the plaudits and the Kenyan national flag, as well as the, I think it was the Valencian flag, was being put round the champion's neck, and still just getting confirmation of the times that are flying in, and so many impressive performances.
Tadesse Abraham, as you mentioned, at the age of 42, finishing his marathon career here with a time of 2:04.40 at the age of 42. There's a nice picture of the race winner, Sebastian Sarway, alongside the benefactor Juan Roch on the left of your screen. He is one of the prime movers here for the Valencia Marathon. On the right of the screen, Paca Bacao, also one of the great initiators of the Valencia Marathon.
And obviously the support that the Valencia Marathon will have on the local communities, those devastated by the floods. And for every single finisher on these 35,000 runners on the streets, they'll be donating money towards those. And it's been such a celebration of coming together as a family, as a sport. And on the left hand of the screen, we have Alamu, the leading female. And on the right, we have the men still crashing across that finishing line inside 2 hours and 10 minutes. And as you said, Tadesse Abraham, a new Swiss national record in his final marathon. I wonder whether that might persuade him to keep going any longer. As you said, 2 hours, 4 minutes and 40 seconds. That is some performance. And so Sonja Mo in there, out in early splits inside national record pace and just having to settle back in that second half. Some fatigue in the legs, and there is fatigue on the legs of Alamu in the later stages of the race. 2 hours 10 minutes, Richard, inside the last 2 kilometers here. And barring a disaster, it's going to be the title for Alamu.
Yeah, just looking at the results of the athletes already across the line, we've got 26 athletes who've gone under 2:08 here in Valencia. There's, on the right of the screen, Carlos Mayo actually set off in search of the Spanish national record, but so he's slowed quite a lot over the second half, but still a very credible first performance over the marathon. He's going to be just outside 2 hours and 11 minutes on his debut here in Valencia. On the left-hand side of the screen, we're following the leading female athlete, Maratona de Valência. Still got her 2 pacemakers. She's coming into the final kilometre of the race.
Yeah, Maya will learn a lot from that race. It is, as we've seen with even those that are crossing line in the top 3, a learning process. 2 hours 11 for Mayo. He will probably be slightly disappointed with that, given the quality. I tell you what, quality of longevity. The athlete at the back of the elite women there is a certain Maurice Estevez. Still going, Richard, still going. Look at him. He's
49, is he?
Oh, something in that region, but he's got a 2:18 personal best. And
I think you raced him, didn't you, 20 years ago?
I did a few years ago, yeah. Richard, I did, and I thought he was getting on then, so he's come back, a resurgence, and he's still a favourite. They absolutely love him.
Just gone past Maratona de Valência at the front of the women's race, so Reyes Estevez.
A little thumbs up, and he'll be getting some great support. So a decorated runner, world medalist, and a European medalist. He's someone that, again, never thought I'd see him run a marathon in these later years, but there he is, out there, gone past the lead female.
And on the right of the screen, there's the first place Spanish athlete, Ibrahim Chakir, who his finishing time 2:07.32. So he has set a lifetime best here in Seville, not a new Spanish record. Remember, that was set here by Tadeko Navala's 2:05.48, but a great result for Chakir. Ran his personal best in Seville 10 months ago, and he's gone 16 seconds faster here today. There's Maratona de Valência, still following her 2 pacemakers, on course for victory, well clear of Stella Chisang, the Ugandan, who's in second place.
Yeah, her split through 40 kilometres, 2 hours, 9 minutes and 31 minutes, so the pace had dropped. It means a projected time around about 2:16, even going on to 2:17, so she's right around her own lifetime best. But yeah, that gap had slightly grown to around about a minute to Chisang, who again herself is still holding on for what would be a big lifetime best, and she's in a battle for 3rd place. Miss Finn is the NN athlete that is occupying the podium at the moment, with Evelyn Chachir trying to give chase, but Alamu up front at the moment. Looks as if this is almost a procession over the last few kilometres to the finishing line. But it is a tired-looking athlete out there right now.
Yeah, I think one thing that is noticeable is how the temperatures have increased. The sun is very bright here in the start-finish area of the City of Arts and Sciences, and I think even for these elite athletes, I mean, it's 10:30 here in Valencia, 700 metres to go for Alamu, but temperatures climbing. We started out at 12 degrees, I think it's around 16, 17 degrees, so a little bit on the warm side for the athletes, and certainly it'll be quite a lot warmer for the runners further back in today's race.
Yeah, it is just slightly hottening up, but still nothing too excessive. But you can see the pacemaker just trying to encourage Alamu. 2 hours, 15 minutes on the race clock. And in this section of the race, every single 100 meters is counted down. And there is the welcome sign of the 500 meters. And it's a bit deceptive from the above angle here, but there is a bit of a drop here once you hit the matting. Very significant 100 meters that for some runners, when they're in pace, we saw with Sarway absolutely loving this section. For Alamu, it's the opposite, Richard. It's almost a fatigue on those quads, but it's 400 meters to go.
400 meters to go, and I think she's just going to miss her lifetime best, 2:16.34. Remember, she set that in London in finishing 4th earlier this year. But what a great record she's had over the last 3 years. 3rd place in Chicago a year ago, 2nd place in London a year and a half ago, a 4th place in London earlier this year. So hugely consistent at the World Marathon Majors. This is her first performance, first time in Valencia, and she's now into the final 200 meters, well clear, and she's just going to be outside her lifetime best, 2:16.34. Now at the age of 27, coming into her prime in her marathon career. Has already run 17 marathons, and today here in Valencia is going to record her 3rd big marathon victory, and probably the biggest of her career, having won previously in Rome and in Seville. Today, great run for Megatu Alamu, 2:16.49.
Just outside her lifetime best, 2:16.34 are those figures, but that looked hard in the end. Operating around about 2:14 pace so much of it, but this has been a great run by the Ugandan athlete, Stella Chisang. And I think this is going to be a national record.
Well, she had the national record herself, 2:20.23. So Chisang is going to take chunks off that. Chisang is into the final 300 meters, and in 3rd place, Turio Mesfin has actually made up ground on the Ugandan. So Turio Mesfin herself, she's got a best coming into this race, 2:18.47. So I think Mesfin could set a best time. She's really hunting down the Ugandan.
Yeah, Mesfin's closing very, very well. Stella Chisang, as you said, improving her national record figures, and she's going to be inside 2:20 for the first time. An impressive 8th at the Olympic Games, and a 67.59 half marathon recently showed that there was good speed, but there's a good battle for the podium. Missen there, you can see in the arm warmers, is going to take 3rd place, but it's the Ugandan in 2:18.26, and is a fantastic performance in 2nd. Missen's also going to be inside her lifetime figures. They stood 2:18.47, so 3rd in the Delhi half back in October, 9th in Boston previously for Missen, and a podium finish today. So that's the women's podium confirmed, but there's also going to be now a chase on those world qualifying times, 2:23.30, and also a chase on the national record of Spain, Richard.
There's Maïta Mayouf. She's approaching that final 600 meters. She's going to make a left turn very soon onto the carpet, back into the start-finish area. And I think she is still on target for a new Spanish record. Remember that record, 2:21.27. So she's got 2 minutes to break her own Spanish record. Maïta Mayouf, she's in 5th place at the moment. We've got a Kenyan athlete, Evelyn Chichir, who herself has broken her lifetime best, came into the race with a 2:22.11. So she's going to be the 4th athlete, the Kenyan Evelyn Chichir, to go under 2 hours and 20. But there's Cheshire. Sorry, Cheshire's just outside 2:20, but she's going to set a lifetime best. Her best time 2:22.11. She's into the final 200 meters. So Cheshire of Kenya, the 4th place athlete in the women's race, and just behind her is the 5th place athlete and the leading Spanish athlete, Maïta Mayouf.
As you said, big personal best, Evelyn Cheshire, 2:22 coming into this, and just outside 2:20. 4th place for the Kenyan athlete. Now the eyes are on Spanish athlete, those Spanish figures. This is an impressive bit of running, Richard.
Very consistent. Remember, she ran here in Valencia for the first time in Spanish colours, having switched her allegiance from Morocco. Her own best time set here 2 years ago, 2:21.01, and maybe that's why she's banging her hands on her head, because she knows she's just outside her own best time. But is she going to set a new Spanish record? It's going to be very, very close. She needs to work very, very hard. Remember, 2:21.27. Is she going to break it? I think she's going to be a few seconds outside, and that's why that look of utter disbelief and disappointment, having worked so hard. Maïta Mayouf, the first Spanish athlete, just outside her own Spanish record, but once again Mayouf finishing as the first Spanish athlete.
Oh, that is tough, Richard. The joy and pain of the marathon in one. She'll be delighted to be the national champion. You can see the splits that are written in black, bold writing on her hand that she would have been looking at, so she would have known she was just maybe slipping off that. But it's the realization when the race clock is in front and runners know that perception of how close they are to the finishing line, and the fact that they're just not going to be able to run 200 meters in X to break the record. So Jose Antonio Redland was a compatriot 500 meter racer with Riz Estevez, and Estevez ain't running 2:16, and there's some big shouts behind. That's another big Spanish run there.
Laura Luengo, a new personal best for her.
Wow, that's a superb run.
2:22.31. And there's Fionnuala McCormack. She's aiming for her lifetime best, 2:23.58 coming into this race. There's Sarah Hall. What a run for her, running here, her 4th marathon. There's Isabel Bat-Doyle. See if we can give her Bat-Doyle's time a new personal best, 2:22.59. And Sarah Hall finishing in 9th place, just in front of Fionnuala McCormack.
There's some fantastic running there.
Great run from Isabel Bat-Doyle. Sarah Hall coming into the finish, being hunted down by Fionnuala McCormack, who's going to run her lifetime best.
So laying it all out there, fighting for those top 10 finishes here in Valencia, those times, and just outside world qualifying as well, 2:23.46. But Sarah Hall, the evergreen Sarah Hall, still racing at the very, very elite end, and that work she's put in up in Flagstaff. And that race then with Fionnuala McCormack, they were sprinting like it was their own race, their own battle. That could be the battle for, I think, maybe 3rd place in the Spanish Championships.
And that's a lifetime best for the Spanish athlete Fatima Uwadu. So many personal bests being set here. Just saw the Czech athlete Moira Stuartova also running a new personal best. There's Susana Santos from Portugal. Came into the race with a best of 2:25.35. She's just coming into the finish now. We'll give you her time in a minute. Santos finishing in 2:24.46, so taking almost a minute off her best. James, we are seeing so many lifetime bests.
We are, and I think it's an Australian national record in the men's, I think. Andrew Buchanan 2:06.22. Do some quick homework on the Australian national record. I think that could be new figures set, but I think we might be hearing from Sebastian Sawe, the champion in Valencia today. What a superb debut from the Kenyan
First of all,
athlete.
mate, congratulations for the victory. And how do you feel with the victory?
I'm so excited. I'm happy. Today, being my first debut here in Valencia, it's a great moment to me. Yeah.
Do you believe in the victory? It's a tough race.
Yeah, because it was my first time, but unfortunately, I won the race, so it was so good to me.
And what do you think about the race, atmosphere, time, the city?
The city of Valencia is a nice city. I'm missing time today, my first PB, best time for me, and everything was so good. Yeah.
And the last question, like you know, it's a difficult time for Valencia people. Do you have any message for them after your victory?
Yeah, big condolence from me for the tragedy that happened to the people of Valencia. It was so sad. And for all, just pray for them. God to give them hearts to have harmony and peace, and all shall be well. Yeah, we are very sorry for the Valencia people.
Thank you so much, mate.
You're welcome.
Well, Sebastian Sawe, the new champion here in Valencia, and interestingly, winning for the first time in Valencia. He's run 9 half marathons. He's won 7 of them. The 2 half marathons that he hasn't won, the 2 half marathons he's done in Valencia. But today, he has put that all to bed in winning here, winning the marathon and winning his first race in Valencia. And alongside Sawe, we've seen so many national records. James, a few moments ago, mentioned the new national record set by Brett Robinson. Sorry, by Andrew Buchanan in 2:06.22, beating Brett Robinson's previous record of 2:07.31. We've also seen new national records for Germany, Switzerland, Italy and Australia in the men's race. And we're just about to hear from the
how do you feel with the
new
victory
female champion.
in this fantastic city, this atmosphere?
Magaalaa bareedduu tana keessatti mo'atuu kan keetii fi wanni sitti dhagahame maalidha?
Magaalaa kana keessatti mo'achuu koof gammachuu guddaatu natti dhagahama.
Eeris xiqqoo.
Baay'ee gammadeen jira kunis.
I'm so happy to get this victory. Yeah.
What do you think about the race, atmosphere?
Haala ol rogoorraa akka ilaaltee, haala qilleensaa akkamitti ilaaltee, haala naannoo.
Haalli qilleensaa baay'ee bareedaadha. Xiqquma jimaa xiqqoon harkee malee baay'ee lafti isaas biyyi isaas bareedaadha.
The course is very good. The weather is very good. Everything is good, but during the race I don't feel good. Little bit I feel injury. Only that's one is trouble mill. Beside of that, everything is good.
Okay. And the last question, like you know, it's a difficult time for Valencian people. Do you have any message from them after your victory?
Warra biyya kanaatiif wanni jettu jira, wanni dabarsu jira, jara bishaaniin nama hir'isanii kennaan.
Organizer iddoo kanallee wasitti naafeeru isaanii baay'ee nan galateeffadha. Uummanni biyya kanaas baay'ee des namadha, isaanis baay'ee galateeffadha.
Warra miidhameefillee warra bishaan nanna'eef. It's okay. Just first of all, I want thanks for race organizer because he's invited me to have this victory here. Beside of that, I say for everybody during the race, it's make fun for me.
Thank you so much for.
Okay, thank you.
So that's Alamu's coach, Haji Ajilo, who was doing the translating for Mageto Alamu, the new champion here in Valencia. who was expressing a little bit of disappointment that she couldn't go faster than her personal best, 2:16:34. Here's the top 10 in the men's race. A superb debut performance by the Kenyan Sebastian Sawe, winning in 2:02:05. In second place, Teresa Galetta, and in third place, the Kenyan Daniel Mateko. And there's 20 athletes under 2:07:20. I recorded 26 athletes who had gone under 2:08, and a number of national records, including the new Australian record set by Andy Buchanan here, 2:06:22. So Valencia Marathon cementing its position as the place to run fast times. There's the leading results in the women's race. The race won by Magetu Alamu of Ethiopia, 2:16:49. Second place, Stella Chizang, and a new national record, new Ugandan national record, 2:18:26. And third place, Tiriu Mesfin of Ethiopia, also recording a lifetime best, with 20 athletes in the women's race going under 2:29, including the British athlete Alice Rice, who recorded a best time of 2:28:48.
Yeah, the race clock now showing 2 hours and 31 minutes, and the number of masses of athletes over the finishing line, following behind some of these national records, and these are just some of the confirmed ones. I think there's maybe even a few more to add to the list, but Tadesse Abraham probably top of that list, justifiably, retiring at the age of 42. A European medalist, and someone that's had a stellar career, someone that also has had a stellar day today. Stella Chizang, 2:18:26, to knock a fair chunk of change off her own Ugandan national record. And they're just once confirmed on the screen, but I think there's even more national records to follow to that. And look at that. In arts and science, and where we are in front of us, the hemispheric, is a beautiful building. As we look back on the highlights of the Valencia Marathon 2024, Trinidad Alfonso EDP, it's been a special day for Sebastian Sawe, the 28-year-old debutant, second in the half marathon here a few weeks ago, and throwing down one of the most impressive marathon debuts of all time, just outside 2 hours and 2 minutes, a negative split for the super talented Kenyan athlete that, well, he could well be someone that could aim at that world record, and we could maybe even see him challenging the magical 2-hour mark. But breaking the tape today, and that will be an applauded finish, and an applauded finish that will be seen around the world. And I don't think we can wait much longer for his next marathon race, but what he did in the latter stages was so impressive today. And Bakatu Alamu was such a brilliant winner in the women's. It was tough out there. It was a tough finish over the closing stages, dropping away from her projected 2:14 or 2:15 time. But a win today. Alamu will be absolutely delighted to take the win. As Richard said, she's been so consistent in her marathons. And for someone that just knows how to prepare for major city marathons, but she'll be delighted today to be on the top spot of the podium here in Valencia. That'll mean the world to her and her team. She had great support from her pacers in the whole of the distance today. Alema will come back to fight another day in a race that saw multiple national records, 24 world standards as well. And as we've seen, so many age group bests and so many fantastic personal bests, but also in what has been a very, very difficult time for the people of Valencia. We hope this event has brought some help towards the healing process, but also towards the rebuilding process as well, and bringing people together through sport and the financial support to that rebuilding process of what is such a special city and such a beautiful city, Richard.
Yes, I think the organisers have wanted to really make a big statement about the support that's being given from this marathon to the families of the victims of the flood, with €3 from every finisher being given to a fund to rebuild some of the damaged facilities. This is the winner in the Spanish race, Ibrahim Chakir.
Sí, la verdad, bueno, las sensaciones, la verdad que al principio súper bien. Estaba, cuando al paso de la media, estaba soñando con ese récord de España, que lo tenía en las patas, pero bueno, la maratón al final te pone en tu sitio. Hemos llegado al kilómetro 30 y ya he empezado a sentir un poco de fatiga en las piernas, con calambres y tal, pero digo, va, más vale regular un poco y llegar a meta sano que quedarte tirado ahí en medio de la carrera. Y la verdad que, bueno, hemos ido ahí, al final ha faltado poquito, bueno, eso, es un poco la suerte y tal, pero súper satisfecho con estar aquí después de los Juegos y apenas con 3 meses de preparación. No es nada fácil, hemos vuelto aquí y la verdad que contento de estar aquí.
¿Y cómo de cerca has visto el récord de España? ¿Lo has tenido ahí?
Sí, la verdad que eso, soñar, para mí, no, un chico así que viene, bueno, de la nada, llevo 20 años corriendo, pero escalando cada año, poquito a poquito, y ahora este año soñar con el récord de España son palabras mayores, y la verdad que es súper agradecido y súper contento de ir progresando cada año más, y eso, que lo vamos a seguir luchando.
¿Y cómo has sentido sobre todo la atmósfera, la ciudad volcada con la maratón como todos los años?
Sí, la verdad, y este año más con todo lo que hemos sufrido con Valencia, no es nada fácil, y súper agradecido a la ciudad, porque después de todo han salido a la calle a demostrar una vez más que tienen valor, que tienen fuerza y que están con la ciudad, y la verdad que se te ponía la piel de gallina cuando veías tanta gente animando, y eso, que súper agradecido a Valencia, a la gente de todos los afectados de la daña. La verdad que súper, bueno, les deseo mucho ánimo, fuerza, y estamos con vosotros.
Muchas gracias por tu tiempo.
A vosotros siempre. Gracias.
So that's the top-placed Spanish athlete in the men's race, Ibrahim Chakir, saying how he was chasing the Spanish record, and he was on target for that up until halfway, and then started to feel some tiredness at around the 30 kilometers, and so did get the Spanish record, but he did set a new best time, and he said he's super satisfied with his result, and also expressing his gratitude to the people of Valencia for the support given not only to the athletes but in staging this race and allowing the race to go ahead, and for the race to be such a positive statement in the rebuilding and recovery process after Storm Dana that devastated the city here 5 weeks ago.
So next an interview, I think, with the Spanish champion in the women's race.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Primero que todo, buenos días y sobre todo enhorabuena por la fantástica carrera. Te has quedado muy cerquita del récord de España. ¿Cómo te has visto? ¿Cómo te has sentido al final? Porque es una carrera dura.
Bueno, durante la gran parte de la carrera la verdad que me he sentido fuerte, me he sentido bien, pero a partir del 35 a 38 por ahí estaba un poco mareada, y digo, pues bajé un poco el ritmo para poder acabar, y ayer pues estaba hablando conmigo mismo y digo, pues tengo que acabar por debajo de la mínima mundial, ya que he visto que me escapa un poquito el récord. Lo he intentado en los últimos 2 kilómetros, calculando un poquito el reloj, pero se me ha escapado por muy poco. Pero estoy muy contenta de haber corrido esa marca, que es 2:21:40, creo que es una gran marca también. Y estoy muy contenta a pesar de la corta preparación que hemos tenido. Y bien, pues la próxima intentaremos correr aún más rápido.
¿Cómo has sentido sobre todo la atmósfera después de lo sucedido con la Dana, la atmósfera de la ciudad volcada con la maratón, con vosotros? ¿Cómo has sentido ese reconocimiento por parte de la ciudad y de los ciudadanos?
Bueno, durante todo el circuito había muchísima gente animando, y bueno, quería dedicarme esa victoria como primera española a todas esas personas que han sido afectadas por la Dana, y bueno, esa victoria va por ellos.
¿Cómo has notado también? Porque los datos que tenemos es que no ha habido ningún récord, ni de España ni mundial. Entonces, ¿ha sido una carrera más dura que otros años? ¿Has sentido como una carrera más dura? ¿O?
La verdad que no es dura. Aquí se corre muy bien, la verdad que se corre muy rápido, pero después de los Juegos Olímpicos he tenido una preparación corta, y la verdad que se ha notado en los últimos kilómetros. No me he notado fresca y bueno, mantener ese ritmo ha sido un poco difícil y aún así hemos corrido gran marca.
Muchas gracias por tu tiempo y por contestar.
Gracias a vosotros.
So Mayita Mayuf, the top-placed Spanish female athlete, just expressing a little bit of disappointment in missing the Spanish record. She said her pace dropped at around the 38 kilometres, but still very, very happy with her result. Obviously, she was inside the World Championship qualifying mark 22:23:30, and also expressing her gratitude to the people of Valencia for the support given to her, and said this race was a victory for the people. Mayuf herself had run the Olympics in August and said that her preparation was shortened because of her recovery from her previous marathon.
Yeah, it is very difficult coming back from the Olympics, on the highs, the emotions of the Olympics as well. The training block that went into that, really cumulative of not just that year, but years of training going into that. This will be a race that she always gets up for. And you can just see that disappointment as she realised the national record had just slipped out. But that will keep her hungry going into training for the next block. I'm sure we'll see her back as the moments, the memories are being made here. But the young families are out. I think she's enjoying it. There's some more celebrations. You can just see the emotions of the marathon. It's tough out there. We're over 2 hours and 41 minutes. Still the masses streaming across the finishing line.
So we're going to hear from another Spanish athlete, elite athlete, Laura Luengo, ran her personal best here in Valencia.
Primero que todo, carrera dura, ¿cómo te has sentido? ¿Cómo te has visto?
Pues bueno, venía aquí con una estrategia muy clara. Yo soy siempre muy positiva conmigo misma y mis entrenadores también. Pensaba que podía salir a ritmo de 2:23 y luego a partir del 30 soñar e intentar apretar. Esa era como la carrera perfecta para mí. Se ha dado, he pasado el 30 y he empezado a meterme cada vez más concentrada, a decir sufre todo, has apostado mucho por esta carrera, y he empezado a recortar segundos y segundos. Creo que en la segunda media he recortado 30 segundos para rebajar la marca a 2:23:30 y nada, es que me he encontrado genial, estoy súper contenta.
Sobre todo felicitarte, has sido la segunda española, no sé si tenías estos datos, que ha sido para ti, que te llegaran llegar, y dices, hostia, que he sido la segunda española, ¿qué sensaciones tienes?
Sí, ha sido increíble, no solo por la posición nacional, sino también por la posición internacional. Yo adelantando a chicas de nivel europeo y de nivel mundial, y yo digo, madre mía, es que no me puedo creer que yo esté adelantando a estas chicas. O sea, esta carrera ya es una carrera de una persona que puede estar en la élite, y eso es lo que más ilusión me hace.
Sobre todo también, ¿cómo has sentido la atmósfera de la gente volcada con la maratón como todos los años? ¿Cómo has encontrado ese apoyo? ¿Te has reforzado para seguir hacia adelante?
Sí, sobre todo los 2 últimos kilómetros ha sido increíble, la gente me ha animado un montón, de verdad, muchas gracias a todos. Ya no pensaba ni en cuánto quedaba ni nada, solo escuchaba mi nombre y ese ánimo y ese cariño de la gente que te llevan volando hasta aquí, hasta la alfombra azul.
Pues muchas gracias por atendernos.
Muchas gracias a vosotros, un beso.
So that's Laura Luengo running her second marathon here in Valencia, improving her best time by over 3 minutes. She ran 2:22:31, which was an improvement from her time set 12 months ago when she ran 2:25:35. And again, Luengo was expressing her gratitude to so many of the spectators who were shouting her name, particularly over those final few kilometres when it got very tough. But a great result for her, second-placed athlete in the Spanish elite women's race.
A great shot there of the start-finish area. The finish area now so busy with sheer numbers coming across, and the to park as well. So a lung of the city to the race as well, breathing some fantastic life into a superb event year on year. that just keeps growing in stature, growing in numbers. Those performances that we saw at the elite end. Sebastian Sawe, what an impressive victory, what an impressive debut, just outside the 2-hour 2 mark. Magatu Lemu was a superb elite women's winner today. It's, the masses still scream and stream across that finishing line. The race started earlier today with expectations. We were not disappointed. 35,000 entries, thousands taken to the streets here in Valencia for the marathon. Alfonso Trinidad, it's been an absolute superb day of racing, Richard. We've seen some superb performances.
Yeah, great race, particularly in the men's race with Matejko really putting his foot down at the 30-kilometre point, and then seeing that fascinating battle between Matejko, Derisa Galeta of Ethiopia, and the eventual winner Sebastian Sawe. There's a great view of Injuran, who has become a big name here in Valencia because of his pacemaking duties, but very well known. There's one of the top Italian athletes, but it was Sebastian Sawe who has made the big headlines.
His win, his debut, superb here at the Valencia Marathon. Trinidad Alfonso 2024, a race that saw multiple national records, 24 World Championship standards, but also bringing so much support to the city of Valencia. From myself, James Lee, and Richard Narurka, this has been the Valencia Marathon Trinidad Alfonso 2024.